心自负，立业且知心为何之？中庸之道，系天下之至德。今人之迷信，不常看之人。小人凡事细，君子所为。人为心之根系，乃心之刚。兄子修其身，是安百姓养。小体力其精细，中枢扩其量。其所不欲者，是无事于他人。水而思之兮，不亦明乎？昔而学之兮，免有殆矣。有朋之远兮，冷漠大洋。人不知而无远兮，君子之福。知之为知兮，为之为不知。失之也也兮，圣人之教。为政于列兮，别政有其所。雄心动之兮，民心自负。立业且知心为何之？中庸之道，系天下之至德。今人之迷信，不常看之人。小人凡事细，君子所为。人为心之根系，乃心之刚。兄子修其身，是安百姓养。小体力其精细，中枢扩其量。其所不欲者，是无事于他人。水而思之兮，不亦明乎？昔而学之兮，免有殆矣。 之为不争，失之也也行。圣人之教，为正于列行，别正有其所，雄心公之心，民心自负，立业切之心何之？中庸之道系天下之至德，今人之迷信不常看之人，小人凡事细，君子所为。人为心之根，其义乃心之刚。兄子修其身，是安百姓养。小体力其精细，中枢扩其量。其所不欲真实，无事于他人。学而思之习，不亦明乎？习而学之习，免于殆矣。有朋之远兮，冷漠大洋。人不知而无远兮，君子之福。正于列行，别正有其所，雄心公之心，民心自负，立业切之心何之？中庸之道系天下之至德，今人之迷信不常看之人，小人凡事细，君子所为。人为心之根，其义乃心之刚。兄子修其身，是安百姓养。 小体力气精细，中枢阔气量，细琐不逾真实，无视于他人。学而思之细，不以明乎？习而学之细，免于大义。有朋之远兮，冷漠大言，人不知而无怨兮，君子之福。视之为知行，为之为不忠，视之也行，圣人之教，为正于列行，别正有其所，雄心公之行，民心自负，立言写之兮，为何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之迷兮，不常看之人。小人反是兮，君子所为。人为心之根系，义乃心之刚。兄子修其身兮，安百姓养。小体力气精细，中枢阔气量，细琐不逾真实，无视于他人。学而思之兮，不以明乎？习而学之兮，免于大义。有朋之远兮，冷漠大言，人不知而无怨兮，君子之福。视之为知行，为之为不忠，视之也行，圣人之教，为正于列行，别正有其所，雄心公之行，民心自负，立言写之兮，为何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之迷兮，不常看之人。小人反是兮，君子所为。呀呀呀。 啊，咿呀呀呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀。人为心之根，习于乃心之刚。兄子修其身，是于安百姓养。小体力其精细，中枢扩其量。其所不欲者，是无事于他人。学而思之，习不以明乎？习而学之，习免于殆矣。有朋之远兮，冷漠大言，人不知而无远兮，君子之福。且知兮为何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之迷兮，不常看之人。小人反是兮，君子所为。啊，咿呀呀呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀。人为心之根，习于乃心之刚。兄子修其身，是于安百姓养。小体力其精细，中枢扩其量。其所不欲者，是无事于他人。学而思之，习不以明乎？习而学之，习免于殆矣。有朋之远兮，冷漠大言，人不知而无远兮，君子之福。且知兮为何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之迷兮，不常看之人。小人反是兮，君子所为。
We are live.
What was that?
And we are live. Welcome
Oh,
back
okay.
this
Well,
welcome
very.
back this week for the second week of the Analects. And since I didn't realize my co-host was chewing something when I clicked the go live button because I had to move over to OBS, I'll be doing the intro. We'll be doing a slight recap in the introduction and some of the key terms that we went over last time. And we're going to be getting into book one and possibly book two, depending on how quickly and how much we digress. And now, since he stopped chewing, I'll let him pick up.
Strike Eagle honey roasted peanuts. Why not? Anyway, welcome back to the Analects. We are going to be starting on book one and book two. We're going to do both of them together because book three is going to be its own episode because it's
If
probably
not
one of
two.
the most, yeah, if not two episodes, because it is one of the most talked about books in the entire Analects.
And
There's
one of
like
the most
book
recently
three.
added to as well.
Right. Well, it's book 3 and book 7 are tend to be the two books that get referenced the most, but and basically 15 through 20 are technically the apocrypha. But, for the Analects.
Well, the reason I brought that up is because they recently added, and we should, when we get to three, go over it. They recently, because of that archaeological dig up in North China, found additional fragments to book three that we will need to add to this. So,
Yeah, that'd
um,
be definitely interesting. One thing I had talked about before was going over key terms. The thing is that we should probably go over the key terms again at least one more time before we start this here because it's going to be really necessary to understand because they're going to be using the Chinese terms for these because one word translations between languages isn't going to help you very much.
and as we pointed out last time, while these have a predominant meaning, they also have secondary, tertiary, and quaternary or tertiary meanings as well, depending on context of usage, whether they're used by student or master, and to whom they are speaking. So there is also that to take into account whenever you see these words.
Two.
Always think who is speaking and who are they speaking to, and then what does the word mean?
Who are they? Who's speaking? Who are they speaking to? And who are they speaking about?
That too.
That's
Well,
the other
that's if
thing.
they're speaking about somebody else rather than the person themselves. Yes, but
It
I should have.
happens a
No,
lot.
no, you're right. I should have brought that up. I was only talking about when the direct discourse interaction as opposed to the story interaction. So you're right to bring that up. The other thing that we should remember, there are terms that are not listed in here that are also problematic that we will gloss over accidentally because both Desperado and I are more familiar with Asian culture, and some of these things are a little bit more second nature to us than Westerners. So it will not even leave a comment if there is a question because we will forget to mention it at times and we won't even realize we did it. So please help us be more correct. If
Yep.
there is something that we gloss over that you have a question on, leave a comment down below and we will address it in the next week.
Yep. Sounds good. Should we going over the terms and whatnot? Do you want me to read them, or does somebody else? Would
Go ahead,
somebody else like to read
go
them?
ahead, because I need to get a drink and go check on the Bitty Boys because I hear movement.
Ah, I see. All right, hold on just a second here. I'm actually going to just save a screenshot of this just to have it in the background so we can we can talk about it a bit easier. So give me just a second here. All right, sounds good. So instead of reading the first part of here, which is basically just telling you that the translations that they're using for these, you can't do a one-to-one to, I'm just going to read them out loud. So first one is Ren, comprehensive ethical virtue, benevolence, humaneness, goodness. The term is so problematic that many Analects passages show disciples trying to pin Confucius down on its meaning, and he escapes it every time. So next, junzi, often used to denote an ideally ethical or and capable person. Sometimes it's simply meaning a power holder, which is its original sense. I would say that when we're talking about this here, when they're talking about ideally ethical or capable person, junzi is basically the ideal person to fit within a society. So that is going to be the person that is going to be the ideal person in your utopian society. This is the person that you look up to.
I will make
Next,
a
we have the Tao.
minor. I will make one minor addition. It is also a term that is occasionally substituted for elder because
Yeah.
in Chinese culture these are synonymous terms.
Yep. So next, Dao, a teaching or skill formula that is a key to some arena of action, an art, self-perfection, or world transformation. Li, ritual institutions of the Zhao, of which Confucius was master in range of behavior, subject to the broad category denote by this term, ranges from political protocol to court ceremony, religious rite, religious festival, daily etiquette, to discipline of personal conduct when alone, and this also applies to what is it, music and instrumental use in performance
It also
and
applies to
dance.
blocking and performance for acting. It's used a lot in a lot of different contexts. The reason they are restricting it to these is because this is the predominantly important one in the context of what we are reading. But yes, it is a fairly ubiquitous term.
The thing to keep in mind is that when they're talking about Li here, they're not only talking about all of these things here, but when they're talking about preserving what is it, art forms, whether it be a skill set art form or an actual like art form of like drawing or music, Li applies. So if you're making pottery, Li applies.
And yes, and to put this to be so specific with you, in Asian cultures, quite literally everything is an art, even writing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean writing poetry. I mean penmanship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is why I'm making sure that you'll understand there will be occasional usages where it applies to a bunch of other shit that's not this, but this is what we're predominantly talking about.
Right. So Tien, carrying the basic meaning of sky, Tien becomes a concept of supreme deity, often translated as heaven, sometimes possessing clear anthropomorphic features, and sometimes appearing as more of a natural force. This can also literally mean the weather. Like, quite
Yes.
literally. It is raining outside. It is the will of Tien.
Yeah. To put this into perspective for everybody again, not just the weather, as little as a breeze as Tien. Like
Yep.
a single blade of grass moving in your yard because of the breeze is Tien.
Yep.
Like this is a
Yep.
extremely nuanced thing, and it is context specific what importance it has. As a natural force, Tien is a will of the gods, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. As a political force, Tien is a malleable force that needs to be maintained within traditional norms. So this is one is everything else, and one is this really finite thing. So
Yep.
the problem is the reason this gets so confusing is because the concept of a demi-plane and extraplanar existence within the Chinese mythos, within most Asian mythos for that matter, is non-existent. All of these things are here on Earth. The heavens are part of the Earth. The hells are part of the Earth. It's all here. So it's why this gets really confusing, because as more modern especially 2500 or 2500 years later minds. We do not conceptualize these things in the same way that these people did, so it's something to take into conception. If you are a Christian, if you are a Muslim, if you are a Hindu, you believe in extraplanar places where you go, etc. These are things that are much later inventions within religion that did not exist within Asia until exposure to the West, and that didn't come for another 820 years from now, right?
Something like that.
230-ish. Yeah, so like
All right.
we're talking nearly 1,000 years after this before the first kind of extraplanar space is even brought into their conceptuality.
All right, next we have day, which is virtue, which is this one is actually pretty interesting. A very complex concept initially related to the notion of charisma, derived from power and gift giving, developing into an ethical term denoting self possession and orientation towards moral action. The funny thing about this term here is that if you were to actually define this and try to find a one word definition for this, it's ethical diplomacy.
Uh, Close enough.
And that's not even a one word. That's just a
Yeah, I was like, that's not
a
one
basic
word.
definition for this would be ethical diplomacy.
Well, I mean, like I said, I have a
As
small
opposed
quibble.
to unethical diplomacy.
Well, I would say virtuous
It exists.
diplomacy as opposed to ethical. But yes,
Yeah.
but that's just because of the way they view these two terms. Ethics in this time period is a rigid set structure, and virtue is the more what we would today call moral. So I would say virtuous diplomacy. But other than that, I agree.
The other thing
I
to
was
keep
gonna
in mind
say,
is
is virtuous diplomacy just any diplomacy that doesn't involve the use of an army?
No, for example, it could still include the use of an army, but operation within good faith, what we would call moral action. So, hey, if you do this, I will do this, as opposed to if you don't do that, I won't do this, and then doing it anyways. It's the intent as opposed to anything else. It's not the action itself.
the reason why it's set up this way is because this is a highly collectivist society. The idea of having charisma, and then that is derived from power and gift giving, meaning that you're actually like participating in giving to the collective itself, is that part of the quote unquote diplomacy, but which is also considered virtuous within the society.
Yeah, and furthermore, this is not unique to Asia. In the same time period in the Middle East and North Africa, this is also the norm within those religious sects of Judaism, etc. Like this is a fairly common interpretation, just the Chinese word for it.
All right. So next we have pattern when, denoting relation to features of civilizations that are distinctive to the Zhao culture or the traditions ancestral to the Zhao. When can refer to decoration, written text, and personal conduct. But most importantly, it points to the behavioral matrix underlining Zhao Li. And they're talking about Li again, as in the Li term that we just talked about with the ritual institutions of the Zhao
and for sake of brevity in this episode, instead of trying to backtrack on this one every time, we will just say culture, because that's what it's talking about.
Yeah.
It is the Zhao period
Pretty
culture.
much.
That is in anthropology, that is the term that would be used here, as opposed to the Confucian term used here. We will more than likely revert to it because it's a single word and it's quicker. So when you hear us say culture in this regards, that's what we're talking about. Go on.
So next we have what is it, like righteousness, or E, which often to complement to Ren, denoting moral correct action choices, and the moral vision that allows one to make them.
Okay, now this one I will only point out. It is also used in contraindicated terms where they will use it mockingly to mean the exact opposite. It's very rare, but it does happen, and they don't. This translator does not bring it up, but other translators and commentators do.
There's there's other things where we'll find out later in the text where Confucius talks about things like what is right, what is fair, and what is just. And just because something is ren, because it's like benevolent human goodness, doesn't necessarily make it which is righteousness at the same time.
Like
it's
I said,
kind of like if
it's
kind of like if someone were to steal something, like someone who is like hungry and starving decided to steal like an apple off a cart. What is it? Would tell you that person need to stand trial for shoplifting, but Ren would tell you that the shop owner should give the person the apple because they're hungry.
And Xilen, the term I brought up last week, would be the argument between the court and the shop owner of where is the middle ground. To be very brief.
Right. So this is one of those things where it'll seem like a contradiction from Confucius, but there is a logic behind it. And there are certain times where they'll talk about things that are considered like unjust, but Confucius will say that if you were to do anything but that unjust thing, you could not call yourself Ren. You could not call yourself a junzi.
Yes, and there and I will use an example in a brief, colorful way that gets us to the point. The father may wish to enact revenge upon the murderer of his children. Doing so would be right, but unjust, because that would be something for the court to do. And the Confucius, ironically enough, uses a similar example where he argues that to enact revenge would be the righteous action, but the unjust action. Yet we would not want the just action to be the action taken by government, which is only capable of being understood when you remember this is 2,500 years ago. this is not anything remotely close to modern interpretations of morality or justice or court systems or law. This is a totally different world that this person lives in.
Yeah. The other thing is that we're also talking about of specific areas of communes of people that literally have their own justice system that's completely different from like the town over from them. So this is a very, very complex system, which is we are doing our best to simplify in a way that will be understandable for your interpretation of these books. Because this is not a class and an apparatus on Chinese culture. This is a culture or a apparatus on the Analects, which is talking a very specific finite period of culture. It is just one of these things that we are going to be overly verbose in this time period because as we go on, this will become less and less digression points. The other thing I will point out, this is where Lao Tzu beat Confucius on this point of culture. Just saying.
Would it be safe? Would it be safe to say that even if you had an understanding of modern day Chinese culture, that the culture that this was written in would be about as different from that as modern Chinese culture is to any form of Western culture?
Funnily enough, no.
Oh, okay.
It's not, no, because you're thinking of it just because of the time period and the differences. And if you were just to say the CCP, kinda, but the underlying like culture, the day-to-day life of the people out in the village, no, not really. There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, you have to understand that basically, what is it like? The majority of these materials here for Confucius, like for the majority of the books, not all of it, but the majority of the books were dug up in the 800s, and they basically became the staple for government.
Yeah, as we talked about last
A
time.
majority of different countries, not just China. Like
Yeah.
this became like
Yeah, as we brought up last time, the little red book that the Chinese government handed to their people is a very large portion the Analects. They literally
the sayings of Mao, which was the little red book, is
a lot of rip-offs of the Analects. Yes.
It's a crappy LLM version of the Analects.
Yes, it's the MAO version. Yeah. But as far as like this kind of communal collectivism, this predated Mao by a very long time.
That much I understood, but like
Mao corrupted these teachings. Mao corrupted these teachings.
I just wasn't aware that the little red book was basically Analects plus communism.
It's Analects plus authoritarianism.
Fair.
So the other thing to think about here as well is the fact that when you're talking about the different schools that people would go to in order to take the test to get into government, after these were like staples for government, is the same system that these countries have in place today that students go to pass tests to get into different schools so they can go up different levels in education and whatnot.
There are places in Cambodia that still have the dress code from this time period in their schools.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is this is something that has been stuck with these different cultures for like, I want to say close to like 1,300 years.
At least. No, I wouldn't even say 1,300 years is the minimum.
Yeah.
Like if I were to go by archaeological and anthropological evidence, I'd say closer to 2,100 years, because it took about 400 years for Confucian teachings to solidify through the primary region that he was in, and then spread to the neighboring regions.
Yeah, it was around 800 or so when we get like the majority of collection of pretty much like the majority of the Analects cohesively put together.
Yeah, before then it was essentially spread
fragments.
And it was spread the old way, missionary style. It was spread by this person going into that culture as a trader and deciding that, hey, that girl's cute, I'm moving here, and it just progressed out that way.
All right, let's move on with these next ones here. We have zhang, and this is denoting not only loyalty to one's superiors or peers or to individual, but also to office, an alignment of self with the interest of others or the social group as a whole. Just to keep in mind that zhang has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with anybody in your bloodline. These are for the people within your community that you are not related to.
Furthermore, notice the priority. Self is last, and only as part of group. Because in this culture, you are talking about one of the earliest cohesive civilizations on the planet that still exists to this day. There were cultures that existed that were quote unquote cohesive, like China, in the same time period. They just don't still exist. Like that's the defining characteristic between the two, the distinction. China has kept these practices going for longer than most of the world knew that North America and South America existed. Like this has been a cultural evolution with many atavistic revisions back to earlier forms that then have new branching evolutions, like the very corrupted version that we were talking about, that is the CCP, which uses this as a cudgel as opposed to a crutch.
Nope. Next, we have trustworthiness and faithfulness, Jin, which is derived from a concept of promise keeping, meaning reliability for others, but also unwavering devotion to principle.
My favorite example of this is the man who vowed to stay under a waterfall until he gained enlightenment, and he stayed there until he died. This is
Well-
So until he gained enlightenment.
well, no, the whole point was he could not gain enlightenment, so he literally stayed there until he died because he was willing to hold to the promise. That was that's the point of the parable from
Yeah.
ancient times.
Oh, okay. I was just making the joke that he could only gain enlightenment in death.
No, it was the point that he was unable to, but he was able to maintain his righteousness. It's that thing that you and I, as more modern, evolved, like communistic thinking people, go at. But it is that kind of promise that was very important in ancient times.
All right.
Now, the other thing to keep in mind with this too is the fact that things that happen that are natural forces that are outside of your control that make it so that you can't keep a promise is on you.
Yep. So if you promise
basically,
to raise
don't
this
make
tower
a promise unless you are. Yeah, don't make a promise unless you are absolutely certain you will be able to keep it.
No. That's not the lesson.
No.
That's the lesson that Westerners take from it. We shouldn't. The thing is don't make a promise unless you're willing to accept the consequences, both good and bad. That's the lesson that Easterners learn from it.
If you say that you will arrive at a location to do a particular job in 3 days and the weather is bad on the third day that you're supposed to arrive there and you don't arrive when you're supposed to arrive, that's considered untrustworthy.
Yes, because that was the gods putting a barricade in your path and you not overcoming it. Blah blah. Lots of old stuff that would take too long to explain. Just
right.
That's why we cringe at it in modern times and understand it in this time period when they literally thought stars were deities.
Right, next, respectfulness and attentiveness, Jing, derived from the notion of alertness and fusing the attentiveness to task characteristics of a subordinate and the respect for superiors that such attentiveness reflects.
Obsequiousness would be the way I would describe this one. No, that's only in the modern way that it's interpreted. In the way that this was, how to put this? The faithful apprentice. If you've ever seen I'm talking for the audience. If you've ever seen that stereotype in like the D&D type movies, that type thing, that faithful apprentice, the faithful squire, that is what they are talking about in this attentiveness. It is respect for hierarchy, but it is also admiration for greater experience, admiration for greater wisdom. It is a pair bonding almost in the way that it is used in Eastern cultures, but because Eastern cultures are more collectivist, that pair is to the group as opposed to an individual.
The other thing is that
based on your descriptions, I'm seeing a lot of overlap between Zhong and Jing.
Yes,
loyalty and this.
And there is the difference is the intent.
The other thing is that something with like this here would be, it's like, let's say that 12 people walk into a room. Okay, you're one of the 12 people that walk into a room.
Yeah,
you get into the room, and everyone goes to sit down, and you realize that you are the youngest person in that room. That means you immediately have to go and serve tea.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to the person that can walk into that room and immediately know that they have to go and make tea and bring tea to everybody else and serve tea to everybody else in order of age is a person that has Jing.
A person who does all of that with a smile and joy in their heart has Zhong.
Right.
I see.
It's the intent
So
that
related,
change.
but
Yes,
distinct
Lo-
concepts.
I would say highly overlapping, interconnected concepts. Kind of like
this is
to bring up a controversial connection and pairing, kind of like sex and gender. Very interconnected, overlapping, but not the same.
This is the yin and yang to Jing and Zhang. Wait, so we'll get to the next part here. We're talking about Shao. Is filiality, a traditional culture imperative, obedience to parents raised to a subtle level of fundamental self-discipline and character building. This applies to your parents, like the people that birthed you. This also applies to your grandparents, and this also applies to aunts and uncles that are related to to your parents at the same time. So when we're talking about this filiality, so let's just say you are the oldest son, and what is it? Your father passes. Okay, you would still have to show filiality to your uncle. And when your uncle passes, because you are the oldest child among let's say the cousins, it would be imperative upon you to take his family into your family and take care of his children as a form of filiality.
I'm going to push back only slightly. This gets complicated depending on what particular region of China you're talking about. This is not universally true as he has laid it out. It is mainly universally true. The only difference is if your family has a mix, because this is before the extreme classism started to form within China. If your family is of mixed class origin, this does not always hold true.
The other thing is that, and this is going to sound really interesting, but the farther north you go and the colder it gets, the more you see this as a responsibility. The further south you go, the warmer it gets. You see it less as a responsibility.
Yes. And this comes technically from weather, and climate, but it is also.
Are you sure you don't mean TN?
No. This one I mean weather and climate, but this is also cultural, and this is something that you will not be taught in most of your history classes. This comes from the intermingling of the Mongolian steppe people with the northern Chinese, and this is actually a holdover from Mongolian culture, from the steppe people's culture of always caring for the old, always caring for the infirm, the injured, etc. Always taking in your neighbors or your brother's children, your cousin's children. Like this is a holdover from that culture, and the further south you get, therefore the warmer climate, the more abundant vegetation, etc., the less this became the norm, because there was ease for them to always have a fallback if you didn't take them in. Whereas up north, where you might, only have to have your horse to eat for 4 days because, he died 3 days ago because you ran out of food. Things are, to change the way you envision taking care of your community. This is why this is a class thing, and this is why I am very appreciative of Confucianism holding this into Chinese culture, because it wasn't originally Chinese culture. It was originally steppe culture that just luckily got far enough south by the time Confucius lived.
All right, and we'll get to the last one, valor, yang. In feudal era marked by incessant warfare, bold warriors and adventurers were common. For Confucians, valor concerns risk-taking on behalf of an ethical principle.
Yes. So, for example, the charge of the Light Brigade would not be young, because, while it was a risk-taking even on an ethical principle, it was a war that could not be won. It was a war that literally just resulted in more bloodshed, death of innocents, and it would instantly remove it from Young. And I use that one
All right.
because it is the one
Because at that point,
Americans
it's
know
not
too
a
much.
risk. It's a
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's not a risk. It's a we are definitely dead if we do this.
Yeah, it is self-sabotage, self-sacrifice. In Young, or Young to be in this karyotype, the Light Brigade would have surrendered because they may have been able to win the day later. This is very confusing.
To book one.
Yeah. Now the only thing I will go back over, we do have to bring up Yang Yun as one of the students that becomes very common to reference, and Yan Yan, who also is very common to reference. One is a student of a extremely wealthy family. One is the student of a very impoverished family. And the way that the masters and the students talk to these two will show you a key distinction in how they interact in this time period as the class system is evolving through Confucianism, funnily enough. Even though I think Confucius would have wanted to like strangle everybody who came up with classism in the way that it became, technically he was the foundation that created it.
All right. So, Ancom, do you want to read the first one?
Sure. Oh, I know what you're doing. All right.
You don't have to read the second one. The second one is the one that is the most confusing.
Okay. Sorry. When you said the first one, I thought you meant like the first page, not just the first item.
Oh, we're doing 1.1 because we're going to probably talk about these individually because.
Fair enough.
Yeah, as you see, we have commentary on the side from this translator as well. So.
The master said, to study and at due times practice what one has studied, is this not a pleasure? When friends come from distant places, is this not a joy? To remain unsoured when his talents are unrecognized, is this not a junzi?
Okay, so I will only make one minor correction. You added in there. Is it not joy?
Did I?
Yeah, you added to just before joy. And the reason I will point out this distinction, a joy and joy are very distinct concepts in Asia. To have a joy would be to be the one bringing levity to these people, to be to be bringing the appreciation. Is this not joy? Is this not joyous for all? Is how that would be interpreted by an Asian mind if you add that word. That is this not joy? This is communal. A joy, is this not a joy? Is this not personally beneficial and gratifying to you? Very distinct concepts to Asian minds.
Fair enough. Now, to me, I can see the relation between the first and the third. The middle one seems less clearly linked to the other two.
Think a little harder. Community cohesion. Who's the person? Who is the person? Well, I was getting there. Who is the person who is usually the most overlooked in a community?
I mean, could be a lot of things.
Usually the most useful.
That's very context dependent because who's overlooked.
That's why I said usually. This is not. That's why it's not Yeah, usually it's the person that is most useful because it is others taking credit for their work, and we know this historically and anthropologically true. This is just humans. So this is one of those things.
That is not the route I would have gone. I would have gone some sort of a social thing, like the youngest person is often overlooked because they are the youngest.
That's true too. This is also within this. This is also true. This is the whole point, to remain unsoured when his talents are unrecognized. Is this not a junzi? Is this not the ideal person who does not become resentful when he does not get appreciation?
Okay, but I guess I'm still having trouble connecting that to when friends come from distant places, is this not joy?
So take it. The entire thing inside here is they're talking about studying and talents. When friends come from a long distance, meaning coming from a place of ignorance to enlightenment, is this not joy?
Yeah, and if
Oh,
they have
god
not,
damn it.
if they,
Fucking
well, but no, but here's, but no, see, but that's
fucking metaphor.
no, that's the metaphor. Now here is the literal, because it's always both with fucking Confucius. If they have been willing to travel hundreds of miles to study and practice with you, is this not joy?
Yes.
Yeah, but,
They have shown appreciation for your significance.
yeah, but okay, when I think
your,
of friends coming from distant places, like that first bit,
you think in Western centric,
not-
you think in Western,
well, yes,
and
because
I know. This is. We're not saying you're wrong.
I am the one of the three of us with the least exposure to Eastern patterns of thinking. So
I understand
this.
this.
Explain to me like I'm 5.
And this is why we find it funny, because you are also a communist, and this is second nature to your thinking. But because of the Western centric thinking that has been foisted upon you, you have trouble pushing past this in just terms. It's enlightenment. If a friend is willing to go that far, obviously they value your presence or your knowledge or your friendship. It is an estimation of your own value within the collective, within the communal group.
Okay, but like it was that connection between, because you added words that I would have not thought to add, which was when friends come from distant places. You added the context of to study and practice with.
No, that context was added in the previous sentence. I didn't add that. I am just bringing it from the previous sentence.
Yeah, but
to study and at due times practice what one has studied. Is this not a pleasure?
Right. The whole thing with distance places with this is that the way he's putting this into context is talking about what is it like from a place of unlearned and having to travel a long distance to get learned in their or learned in a particular fashion. Is that not joy? And the thing is where they're saying friends with this, it's somebody that, in essence, that they're teaching that is coming the long distance.
Yes, and it is both metaphorical, as he is pointing out, and the literal. Because if these people were willing to travel distance across bandit-ridden lands, where they were literally taking their life into their own hands to come hang out with you, this is like our modern minds have trouble conceptualizing this because of our rather privileged position of safety and in modernity. In this time period, traveling from one village to the next could be the end of your life. Your horse could break a leg.
Bloodline.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I mean that too. But I mean, but I mean, like we're talking like going to see a friend in the next village over. You could be a census redaction before you get there. Like this is like this is a time period where just going to work every day, you are taking your life into your own hands. So traveling a great distance away from your family, away from your primary community, to study with somebody else, be it mentally, you have progressed out of your rural upbringing to understand both rural and city life, or distance wise, you've traveled from the fucking Hindu Kush to fucking, to Chiang. Both of these things have the same level of cultural significance for different reasons. See what
I think part of it here is that I'm taking the term study in a
literal?
very specific context here. Yeah, in a very literal context, meaning to study, to
No,
like
do that. No.
And when friends
do that.
Hold on, let me finish my thought.
Go on.
Let me finish my thought. When friends come from distant places, generally speaking, they're not here to study in any anywhere near that context. Like to spend time with you, to to have that time together. But like that's where this disconnect is for me, because I'm like, I don't consider hanging out with friends to be studying. Like
Yes,
that's not how I think that works.
no, but take that term. Now, apply it to the communal action of studying your environment and your culture to make sure you are within the li.
Remind me what the li is again.
The culture.
I'm not going to remember.
The culture.
Okay.
More specifically, that culture from centuries before Confucius' time period that he is trying to. Yeah.
The other thing to
He was trying to
derive
recreate,
from this as well is that if someone is coming from a distant place, they're coming in with new information.
Yeah, that's
and
also true.
you're going to be getting new information from them from the distant place that they're coming to that you may not have had before, which means that you're going to be studying.
Also true. And that's the thing. You think of studying in a more and this isn't Western centric, this is modern centric thinking. And this is actually something I have to blame more on the Hellenistic people than the fucking Chinese. We think of studying as a separate entity. In the ancient world, specifically all over Europe and Asia, in this exact time period of 500 BCE, it is not the norm to study like that. Study is every day, every moment you are awake, anytime you are in the presence of anyone, anything, any natural entity. Study is every moment that you are not sleeping, is how they thought of the word study.
The other thing is they could consider somebody to be heavily studied just by them having conversed with many people.
Yes. Like for example, if this is a mythical example, but it is an example that it will be fun if you want to go down the rabbit hole. If I was the Count of Saint Germain, the mythical immortal that has seen all of these time periods, seen the birth and death of Jesus, seen the fucking rise and fall of empires, etc., and I had just spoken to all these people and therefore just knew all of this history and could converse at a high level with all of these people, I would be studied. I would not necessarily be learned. Learned and studied are different. Right. I would be studied. Learned, I would be somebody more like Da Vinci. Somebody who is quite
So now I'm taking this in the context of, to put it in very modern terms, book smart versus street smart. To be studied is closer to being street smart means you're more experienced, you have more real world.
They're more interchangeable in ancient times than that, but you're not far off.
Okay.
There's a lot more. I'm just saying, you're pretty.
There's a Venn diagram. There's a Venn diagram that overlaps, but there's distinct areas where they're separate from.
And I would say more overlap than not. I'd say you're very accurate in your interpretation. They are less stringent in their application because of the way these concepts had not been cemented and fully evolved to what we have today.
So a study
just to be clear, because to me, to study means, to study for a test or study for a,
this is how they studied for a test.
Context.
This is how they studied for
tests. Yes, but I'm saying
that's my point. You are right and you are wrong. It's because these terms overlap so much. You are right. This is them studying for tests. The difference is their tests would be on things that other important people had said and other studied people had said, because that would be what would be needed for their, for lack of a better term, internship into their particular caste of society. And I'm using these terms very broadly for brevity. It's a lot more complicated than that. But yeah,
a studied person wouldn't, like, to put it in the context of this universe and whatnot, a studied person would know the name or the name of the bandit group and how much money they would need to bribe them.
Mm.
A learned person would understand the topography of the area that the bandits live in.
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can
Mhm.
put this into a slightly different relatable context. Because what Despy just said reminded me of a particular dichotomy in, of all things, Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. So
Very
in
different
Game of Thrones,
universes. Very different
yeah.
universes.
My brain had a fart. Anyways,
I know,
One
but
is
it
a
was
little
just
bit
in
more
Game of
funny.
Thrones,
incest than the other.
in Game of Thrones, at in like the first season, we see, and I want to say it was Arya. She was studying with a maester to learn things like the other houses
Mhm.
of the land, their words, things like this, things that she would need in her particular role as the daughter of a lord, versus learned, which was more akin to
Well,
what maesters themselves did, which is they were learning
well,
facts about the world.
to stick with the same character, so the analogy holds a little bit better.
Yeah,
She was studying with the maester. She was
yeah.
becoming learned in the House of the Faceless.
Oh,
Make more sense
interesting.
now? At least in
Yeah.
this context. The way that we would use these terms today does not track this way. In the way they use it,
Yeah.
that's how that
Yeah,
tracks.
I hadn't even considered her in the House of the Faceless. So
Mhm.
that
All
okay.
right. So,
Sorry,
Ancom, do you
I
want to
realized I
read
pulled
the?
us way off track.
Yeah. Did you want to read the notes on the side there for 1.1?
And I was going to say, no, you
Yeah.
didn't pull us off track because you brought in pop culture references that these kids who will be watching this for school will understand, and therefore might help them understand it in a way as well. So that makes that you did not digress at all.
All right. 1.1 note: the master refers to Confucius, Kongji, or Master Kong. There are 3 precepts here. The punchline is the last. As an example of the many different interpretive traditions that may attach to Analects passages, this last phrase is read in one long-standing tradition. To remain unsoured when others do not understand your teaching, is this not a junzi? Junji, originally a prince, used by the Analects to denote an ideal moral actor. The term is sometimes rendered gentleman, but has a more emphatic moral sense and is left untranslated here. At times, it merely denotes a ruler. Note, more detailed discussions of key terms may be found in the glossary.
Okay, so
Probably didn't
Right.
need that bit.
no, because the thing is I don't like this. This translator is not bad. I've been going through it. I'm not a fan of his commentary. He's a little disjointed in his commentary, in my opinion, because he is assuming the people who are reading his commentary have already read the Analects through in a more traditional setting before getting to his. You can see it in the way that he phrases things as if you are just supposed to know this already. He's not a good communicator. He is an effective translator.
All right, Jack, do you want to do 1.2?
In 1 second, I will just say that digression that we did. These are very much the whole point to Confucius style teaching, by the way. That digression that we went into through pop culture, through secondary cultures and neighboring culture, that is what he would have done with his students. He would have just done it through the more phrasing, as the commentator points out. In a more traditional sense, if Despy and I were both Chinese, I could literally bring this whole concept to his mind by saying to remain unsoured when others do not understand your teaching. I wouldn't even have to finish, is this not a junzi? He would fill in the rest and the rest of the concept and the rest of the context. I would just say that
Yep.
line. Okay.
Yep.
And the reason I bring that up is you will see that they will reference certain previous passages and previous books in the same way. We will see this as a running trend going on. Master Yu said, It is rare to find a person who is filial to his parents and respectful to his elders, yet who likes to oppose his ruling superior. And never has there been one who does not like opposing his ruler, who has raised a rebellion. The junzi works on the root. Once the root is planted, the Tao is born. Filiality and respect for elders, are these not the roots of Ren? And as we pointed out, Ren is a moral term that reflects humaneness, benevolence, goodness. Actually, goodness is a little bit too simplistic. The optimal decision making would be more accurate, because not every optimal decision is a good decision. Because as we talked about previously with good and righteous and just, these are not ubiquitous terms. And this is one that, and if you remember last week, we had our dear communist friend here to have a small conniption fit as he was reading ahead. Because this is a very unjust hierarchical structure in modern times. And this is where I have to push back on my anarcho friend. That is because of modern times, not because of the concept as a whole. This concept does not necessarily breed unjust hierarchies. It is the lack of accountability of our elders to the communal good that has led to this disconnection between the two. In this time period, where quite literally, if all the elders of your village got killed in a war, you could lose entire sciences, entire art forms, entire skill sets. This is a very
just to be clear,
I know. No, I'm saying for the
complaining about the respect for elders, if we're especially.
I know. This isn't for you. This is for the audience. I know you get it. This is for the audience, not for you. I know you get this. My point is this is what made you bulk was because you immediately thought modern conception. 2,500 years ago, the average older person was your fucking genius. Like compared to and I don't mean that in the modern sense that they were the person you learned from. There wasn't this kind of formalized teacher pupil relationship. It was you learned from everybody who was older than you that had skills that you didn't. It was everybody was your teacher, and anybody who was less skilled than you was your pupil. Like these time periods, the way that we cannot think about them in the same way, because, for example, a clay or not clay, a terracotta style that was created in the southern portion of China in this time period, did not travel to the north because of 3 wars that basically killed off multiple artisans as they tried to travel through those regions to take it to the north. It didn't get to the north until 800 years later, when all the warring had ended. The technology had existed in the region a couple 100 miles away, but it couldn't cross the deadline of the wars. Literally, the deadline. So in this time period, every elder was a teacher. Every elder had knowledge you did not. Because they were the ones who survived. They were the ones who, quite literally, beat the odds. Because in this time period, the mortality rate's like 60% of anyone. You have a greater chance of being dead before the age of 10 than you do of making it to old age in this area, in this time period. And that's everywhere in the frickin' world. So like these are the, for lack of a better way, the herd culled frickin', alpha bosses that you are learning from.
No, it's this is natural selection.
That's why I said the herd culled alpha bosses. That's what I mean. It's like it's just like these are the people who survived going across the Serengeti and all the lions and all the leopards and all it, and are now raising the next generation and the generation after that. Yeah, that's why this feels so weird. We do not think in this intergenerational knowledge progression in that way. We have learned and develop technologies to where I can learn all of this. I don't need no fucking anybody who's ever fucking been to China and I can learn about this shit now. Yet, in this time period, you may not be able to learn a skill from 40 miles away. It is the concept of period that makes this so important, and why your bulking was so funny to me and Despy, because we knew it would make you bulk, and then we knew once it was more heavily explained, you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. This just sounds fucking weird.
Well, okay,
this just sounds fucking weird.
Still, like, it's not even the filial to parents and respectful of the elders. I do feel like filiality, being specifically, like, including the concept of obedience to parents, like, sure, I take minor issue with that, but that's not even the really
not necessarily obedience. Mindfulness would be the more accurate term. Mindfulness of parents.
Okay. It's the bit about who likes to oppose his ruling superior. The concept of a ruling superior itself is what I find objectionable. And, like, the fact that they are combining this mindfulness and respectfulness to parents and elders with obedience to superiors, like, they're making that connection.
Well, but
that's the thing I find objectionable.
I know.
Overall.
No, I get you. And now here's where I will draw the connection. In this time period, in this region of China, more often than not, your ruling superior is a fucking family member. So that's why this overlap kind of has some very icky feelings in modern times when there's 8 billion people on the planet and your boss may be somebody who's from who knows where. When your ruling superior is your great uncle twice removed, it changes things a little.
Right. And the other thing to keep in mind is that when you're talking about this here, is that your ruling superior could be your dad.
Yeah.
Or your mom.
And here's the other point. And never has there been one who does not like opposing their ruler who has raised a rebellion. Name a time that's untrue, Ancom.
Oh no, that one I've never had an issue with.
No,
that
but now wait, put it back into the context of this might be about your family. This might be about your very commune that this is talking about. It is talking about the communal good. Because what does rebellion do? Even if the rebellion is successful and ends up leading to greater times later, what does it do in the moment, Ancom?
It
disrupts the harmony of the community. To put it in a Japanese terms, it destroys the wa.
Yep.
That is what it is trying to. Cultural revolution.
That'll get you killed.
And cultural revolution is allowed. That's why, like, when I wrote my book on communism, I wrote about the cultural revolution, not the violent one, the perpetual, permanent cultural revolution of always evolving, always taking on the next steps, etc. This is essentially the same thing, because culturally, the revolution can be pushed back on, or the culture can be pushed back on and changed and modified. But rebellion kills the culture, kills the people, kills the skills. They want to change minds, not body counts. And that's where he and Lao Tzu very much differ on this mindset.
And where I have a feeling that I would probably side a little more with Lao Tzu than I would with Confucius.
You would for all of about 10 seconds until you realize what that thought process led to. I'll just point you to the killing fields point in history.
Yes, I'm aware of the killing fields, and like the point here is like as well as anyone, I don't want rebellion. I don't want violent revolution.
You're like me. You want that permanent cultural revolution if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
but I also accept that there may be points where that peaceful cultural revolution is simply not possible.
And now here's the point, the context that you're missing. Peaceful cultural revolution in this time period could still equal you dead.
I mean, everything's going to equal you dead
No,
eventually. But
no. I don't mean in the abstract. Oh, you could. I mean, like, you could say the wrong thing to the wrong superior and not make it to the next sunrise. Hey, wouldn't this be a good idea?
You might not
And
make it to the next meal.
yeah, that's one of the things that I'm, that I'm going to have major objections to.
But here's the time, again, time period specific, Yeah, because let's just say, and this isn't to say it wasn't abused. We all know it was. This isn't me defending the abuse. But again, in a time period of communal living in extremely harsh regions, this is the way you have a society survive. Not prosper, not necessarily become truly enlightened and all of that jazz, but survive and be able to have another generation or two. Like, that is what this is teaching. It is a very antiquated, very obsolete thought that we have modernized as we have changed time periods, and now, period, this no longer makes sense unless we modernize and adapt it to modern systems. That's why this feels so icky. But yeah, we should go on. I'm going to read that. Yeah, I will. I will just say this last part. Master Yu is also one of the biggest pains in the ass in this fucking book to translate, and this guy does a decent job. Master Yu, or Yuro, was a disciple. For a brief time after Confucius's death, he took on the master's role for the group of disciples. Dao, or the way, the Confucian notion of the evolved moral and cultural pattern of the past eras of sage governance, Dao is also a generic term for any fully conceived behavioral path. Ren, the key moral term in the Analects, rendered as humanity, goodness, I hate that he put goodness there. Yeah. Goodness, etc., is a rich meaning of the mystery to many in the text and defies translation. And then don't put goodness, because we're fucking stupid for using that. That was them bringing in Judeo-Christian stuff into it because of their mindset.
All right, next we're going to do 1-3. 1-3, we'll probably have a lot to talk about, but go ahead.
Before we move on, just because I don't know that we addressed it last time either. The word Analects, I know we went over what the actual, like, the Chinese name of this text is, but I don't think we went over what, like, the word, because Analect is a, like, I'm assuming the S there is pluralizing, but it may not be.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I don't know what that word means. I've never heard that word outside of this book. What is an analect?
For
sayings?
well, that's not entirely accurate. For lack of a better way of phrasing it, semantic digressions would be the most accurate way I could put it, and the fewest words. It is the process of sayings that do semantic digressions of culture. It's really what it is. An analect is that.
Oh, I remember. No, it's logical conversations,
which is essentially what I said. But yes,
yeah.
Because in this time, well, I was just gonna say the reason that I use semantic
logical conversations.
Go ahead.
Logical conversations was the literal translation of the Chinese name, but like,
yeah,
this English word analect, unless it's just a like transliteration of the Chinese.
It is a, if I remember correctly, essentially a not a portmanteau, for lack of a better word, hybridized word of using the Greek prefix to lectic to lect to be the semantic digression to create the juxtaposition between the two. Anna being the anathematism too, and
Ah, okay.
if I'm
I just looked up
remembering
the
correctly.
etymology.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just looked up the etymology. So analect comes from New Latin analecta, from Greek analecta with a K instead of a C, meaning things chosen. So it just refers to like collected works, essentially.
Well, in that Hellenistic minimized version, yeah, that would be
I'm
be
just
no
looking at.
that would
I'm
be
just
that
trying
would
to
be
figure out where the word.
well. See, the
Yeah.
thing is etymologies will tell you origins, not necessarily use cases and popular usages. That's why I'm saying
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out where
I'd
this
say that's
word
close
comes
enough for. I'm saying that's close enough for government works. Collected works would be a omnibus would be another one that you could probably toss in
Yeah.
there as a synonym for it.
Yeah.
All right, let's
So,
move on.
like you
We're
could
gonna
call those big volumes that are, the collected works of Shakespeare, the Analects of Shakespeare, and
Yes.
not be entirely off.
Well, as long as there was commentaries within it, yes, because there does
Hmm.
have to be that kind of dissection and digression. But other than that, yes, I would agree with you.
Okay.
So like
Fair enough.
Rich's study Shakespeare book, his annotated Shakespeare book would be an
Yeah.
Analects of Shakespeare.
Cool.
all right.
That's all I was trying to figure out. It's like, what does this English word mean?
Okay, so let's keep moving on. We're gonna go to 1.3, and this is duplicated in 1717 or 17.17. And the thing to remember is there's going to be a lot of duplicated
Yes.
sayings and phrases throughout the Analects, because a lot of these are just, as we explained before in the previous thing, these are pieces and parts that have been put together, and people have been trying to get everything to fit nicely together. And
we are still
duplication.
discovering new stuff up to, like I was bringing up at the beginning of the episode. We recently found new pieces as recently as 3 years ago. So like this is stuff that we are still learning new stuff about today.
So 1.3, the master said, those of crafty words and ingratiating expression are rarely wren.
For to put this into an analogy that will make sense to you, used car salesman is rarely read. It's rarely a moral actor.
Right.
This one actually makes perfect sense to me. Like this one's easy to conceptualize. Like people who are
that was it for
to,
you. That was for audience. Yeah, I knew you'd get this instantly because
Yeah.
you're like,
No,
that's fucking every dickhead.
Yeah, but I'm trying to point out that like, yeah, this one, crafty words and ingratiating expression, like that to me, Grima worm tongue. If we're gonna go with a pop culture reference,
Yeah, that's a very good example. In this one, it would be at least I would say the better reference would be the equivalent of snake oil salesman. Because of the simple fact that
a flim flam artist.
Yeah, well, the specific thing that the master is warning about in this particular teaching, when you go to the actual fragments, he is teaching about a traveling merchant selling bad wares like bad knives and stuff like that, with flowery and colorful words is the greater context to that. But yes,
the best way to put this in modern terms so everybody understands is this is your MLM salesman.
yes. Yeah, this is your
That's a good one.
Amway, your Cutco knives, or the fuck they were, like Kirby vacuums, etc.
Yep. All right, let's move on to 1.4.
And since that one was so short, well, I was gonna say, since that one was so short, just go ahead and you do this one because 2 sentences.
Okay.
Come on now,
So,
we're not letting you get away that easy.
Master Zhang said, each day I examine myself upon 3 points. In planning for others, have I been loyal? In company with friends, have I been trustworthy? And have I practiced what has been passed on to me?
Yes. Okay, so there's a key reason why I wanted Despy to read this beyond just giving him shit for only reading 2 sentences. He's a teacher by profession, and this is probably the 3 questions he has asked himself more than any other in his career. This is one of these things that, unless you have taught specifically children, you cannot have a full grasp of these concepts as combined as a whole, because these aren't three concepts. This is a singular concept. And to put it into a slightly more well-known ancient version, this is the Egyptian trial of the dead. Have I brought joy to others, and have I had joy in my life? This is being more pragmatic about the skills and the community, but that is what those two questions in ancient Egypt were basically talking about as well. This is what it is being brought up as here, is have I brought joy to others, and have I had joy in my life? Now, the reason for this is, to these cultures in this time period, the prosperity of your community, quite literally your family, is your joy. It is your prosperity. It is the entire point to your existence, for lack of your raison d'etre. This is what brings your community prosperity, and therefore ease. And the more ease your community feels, the more largesse it can create. And when I say largesse in this specific context of the 5th century BCE, that means larger family, more farmland, reclaimed from nature to grow more rice for your family so that you don't potentially starve if there's a harsh winter. That's what all of these questions mean to these students, because each one of these students is meant to then become a master in their own right, in their own community, and teach this to their communities. That is the point of Confucianist teaching in this time period.
All right, I'm going to read the 1.4, what is the things here? Master Zheng is the disciple Zheng Shen. Among the youngest of the Confucian major disciples, the fact that he is referred to as master in the Analects indicates that his own latter disciples had a hand in the text. So Zheng Shen's death is described in book 8. And loyalty, zhang, and trustworthiness, xin, are complex concepts in the Analects. Loyalty involves taking others' interest as central in your conduct. Trustworthiness means standing by one's word, or more deeply, being a dependable support for others. Both could be rendered in some context as faithfulness. Occasionally, I have rendered xin in that sense.
Okay, now the point of this is where I will digress from this commentator, because I will go with some of the other scholars I have read on the subject. No, I do not believe he is accurate in saying that this is a indication that the disciples of Zheng had a hand in the writing, because there are fragments of Confucius calling him master from other students writing about their interactions. So if Confucius called him master, I would say more than likely this would be an indicator of favored student, as opposed to later interpolations.
Yeah.
That's my only thing I would push back on this, just because he is holding to it is a more consensus view that this is why it is more prevalent in the later text. But when you look at the oldest fragments, there are other students quoting him as Confucius calling him master. I just think it was his way of indicating his favorite student. Personally, I am in the minority of scholarship on this. I will admit, but why would Confucius ever call him Master Zheng before his death, if he had not either A, progressed out of the school, or B, had some kind of favoritism? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that he would have ever said that word for a student, unless it was to indicate favoritism, or a student who had essentially graduated.
Yeah. All right. So next up
Ancom
is
1.5.
Ancom 1.5.
All
Yep.
right. Okay. The master said, to guide a state great enough to possess 1,000 war chariots, be attentive to affairs and trustworthy, regulate expenditures and treat persons as valuable, employ the people according to the proper season.
Yes.
That last pair of words feels like it needs some explanation.
No. It doesn't require explanation so much as a secondary thought for you. In this time period, did anybody have the same job year round?
Probably not.
So, you don't hire the woodcutter for the summer. You hire him to be the forester. You hire him for the woodcutter for the winter. That's what the proper season is indicating in that phrase. Because almost everybody in a extremely seasonal region in ancient times had multiple jobs dependent on season.
Likely the woodcutter is also the hunter at the same time. So
yeah, I just used woodcutter and forester because it was an easier parallel. But that's also a very good one as well.
Like, and even if they're not actually like shooting deer or like shooting game or whatnot, they're trapping,
or they're collecting, for lack of a better term, roadkill and skinning. Because even if you didn't kill it, the skin's still good. You can't eat the meat, but you can keep the skin and use it for leather or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what this is referring to. Now, I think the reason that it made you pause a little bit is because of how this started. To guide a state great enough to possess 1,000 war chariots.
No, it was more that when I read the term employ the people, and then I see according to the proper season. First of all, I'm reading a translation of something in Chinese.
It's fairly accurate.
But Chinese, in my experience, loves to use euphemism and metaphor in a lot of what they say. So I figured this was metaphorical more so than literal.
Well, no, it's both. It's both.
Yeah. Second, when I think of employing someone, right, I'm thinking, okay, like they have a position.
Mm-hmm.
The duties and responsibilities of that position may change across the year, but the position itself does not inherently change. So yeah, you are doing forestry and hunting and
that comes from the
stuff
convenience
in
of
the
modernity.
Summer, but then as it transitions into winter, your duties change, but your employment, your position doesn't. So that's why I was.
Yeah, well, no. See that's the modern. That's modernity kicking in. To modernity, employment is career. In ancient times, employment is quite literally task assignment. That's it. That's all this means.
That's fine.
No, there's
a bit I needed to clarify.
There's a difference here. So somebody who, let's just say, is the forester will have a lower social status than let's say somebody that is going to be taking care of the fields during the summertime or harvesting food during the summertime. That same forester that is employed as the woodcutter in winter is going to have a higher social status than everybody because they're responsible for keeping everybody warm.
Yeah. And it would change dependent on the season. Their literal social status would the day they need to start cutting firewood, they are now king cock of the walk again. That's how these cultures work.
To me, in my mind, because I see these two as inextricably linked. If they are the woodcutter in winter and they are the logger, the lumberjack, whatever, the person cutting down the trees in summer, they cannot be the all high and mighty woodcutter in the winter if they have no logs. So I would consider the action of cutting down the trees to gather the wood to be just as important for the long-term health of the community.
See, you misinterpret what the social status of the forester would be. It's not the collection of the wood, because frankly, that wouldn't actually be his job. That would actually, the whole community would do that as they're clearing farmland, etc. Um, his job in that time period would be maintaining the health of the forest. And considering you're coming from a time period before industrialization, before mass pollution, etc., like all of these things, that job was considered the least important because it was the one that Tian would take care of more than you. Going back to the way they use the natural forces would take care of that. Your job is to prevent the unnatural forces, because in their period,
fucking bookmark the glossary.
Yes, this is why we're going to be recapping those terms at the beginning of each episode.
Yeah, and I'm still gonna forget them by the time we actually get to
Ancom, I'll just send you a present real quick, okay? Does that sound good?
Yes. Now, the reason that this feels weird to most modern ears, and why it may even be subconsciously why it keeps tripping you, is the war chariots part. The reason this is important is not the ability to wage war, although that is how it is expressly portrayed by the aristocracy of the time period. The war chariot is a luxury. Most armies went to war in this time period on foot or on horseback, no chariots. So to have a chariot was a luxury. This indicated prosperity, not the ability to wage war. It meant that you were so good at doing everything else that you did that you could spend extra on war. Because war was not the primary motivator of this particular culture in this region. It was the primary motivator to end warfare of this culture in this region, in this time period.
And the other thing is that these war chariots, even though they say the word war chariots, would be looked at as more of something that you would have in an arsenal rather than something that you would be actively using in combat.
Yeah, this would be the equivalent of your saber on the mantle. Is how this phrase is being used. It feels really weird because we come from a time period where if you're building fucking weapons of war, you're going to war. This time period, you built weapons of war just to show off.
Yeah.
Now,
I would have argued that the U.S. built weapons of war largely to show off, but then recent events happened.
Well, the thing is we do both. And that's why America is hard to nail down on that. For example, we still, idolize the A-10 Warthog. That's an obsolete platform that barely is able to stay in the sky, yet people like to hear go over the airfield, so we have kept it in service for much longer, even though we have better weapons platforms.
Name a collapsing high-end empire that doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. Now, going back to the key point here, be attentive to the affairs and trustworthy, or to affairs and trustworthy. Regulate expenditures and treat persons. Notice it says persons, not people. This is a key distincting difference in the way that this is phrased in Chinese. Persons as valuable. This is very abnormal for a collectivist mindset.
Yep.
This is treating
as a
individual value
of individuals rather than a collective of.
Yes, and there is a reason for this, because it is the leader's responsibility to know everyone's name, everyone's family, everyone's living conditions, and make sure that he is being as just a ruler to them as possible. His ignorance of a starving family in his community is just as much of a damning indictment as the starving family in his community. That is what this is indicating.
Yep.
This is putting the responsibility of the master, in the traditional sense of that word, not the much darker sense of that fucking word. The traditional sense of that word responsibilities into perspective. You have to go cut wood. I have to know that you're the one to go cut wood. And I have to know that you going to go cut wood is going to provide for your family well enough so that my community prospers.
And I have to know that the person going with you to learn how to cut wood is somebody who's also trustworthy within the community to learn how to cut wood when you can't cut wood.
Yes. And this is why I put in the title maybe book 2, because there's a lot of digressions, and this isn't on you, Ancom. We would have had to have gone into these digressions with or without you, because most Western minds do not have any understanding of this kind of collectivist mindset. Even people who study,
which is why
communism.
it's good that I'm the token Westerner in this group.
And now, for context, I am not Eastern. Despy would be definitely hold that title. I was a tourist by comparison. I just know a bit more than most Westerners on the subject.
Yeah, I am the token ignorant Westerner.
I was just making sure that people don't put too much stock into everything I say.
I did 4 years of university with East Asian. East Asian language and literature. And I studied, Japanese, but I also took a year of Chinese as well. And the hodgepodge of classes that I had were a mixture of things from China and things from Japan. So,
and I'm just going to tell you, and just because it will annoy anybody in Japan that may be watching from his clique, a lot of it came from Korea first. Sorry. I'm right, but it's funny.
I know. I'm just saying, like, if we just look at like language progression and linguistic anthropology, things go in a particular direction.
We could remove the entire linguistics out of it. Just go with the cultural anthropology. I could draw all the parallels for them. They'd want to string me up and throw me in the frickin' South China Sea, but I could do it.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, jokes aside, that is a Southeast Asia joke that if you know, you know. I'm not going into the explanation beyond to point out that it was something that you do have to have a little bit of knowledge to understand. And we will move on.
We got to read. We got to read the note point.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to scroll down to that here in a second. I was just going to say, the last point I will bring up: proper season is not just season of year like we have been discussing. This is also season of peace, season of war, season of harvest. The way that they think of seasons is not in a calendar sense. There's many overlapping seasons upon seasons. Like, that's why this is worded the way it is. This could also be,
and with the proper season at the same time, this could also be like you have something like a death of an official, and you have like a 3-month mourning period.
Yeah, the mourning season.
And then you have to There's season doesn't necessarily mean spring, fall, summer, and winter.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up before we moved on, because that is important to remember.
This could also imply seasons of locusts, like for pestilence, or seasons of cicadas.
Which are on 17-year cicadas.
Yeah, is it like certain ones on 13 and other ones are on 17
and 17? Yeah. Well, they have evolved to have prime number year cycles, because weirdly, purely by coincidence, since prime numbers have no divisors, it's hard for predators to have, if they had like an even number thing, then the predator could be on like a 2-year cycle and it would eventually get to it. But with a prime number, you have to be on the same length of cycle or you don't get it. So it's a lot harder for a predator to be on the same cycle as a cicada on a prime number year cycle. So long prime numbers, 13, 17, 19, all of those are good length of cycles for cicadas to be on.
Speaking of which, we got about 2 more years, and then the cicadas here are going to start popping out again.
Yep.
Well, you should, if I'm remembering correctly, because of how far north you are, you should technically be getting them next year because of the cycle in Hokkaido bringing some down.
Yeah, well, all I'm going to say is that it sucks the year that they come.
Well, you guys get it 2 years in a row because of that, because of how far north you are. That's why I point that out. Because the island of Hokkaido being so much colder actually is cycled off a year from the rest of Japan.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Ancom, can you read 1.5 in the notes section?
Yep. Let's see here. In classical China, the size of feudal states was often expressed in terms of chariot forces. 1,000 chariots denotes a mid-sized state. Certain political issues important to the classical era recur in the Analects. Employing people in the proper season contrasts with the practice of pulling peasants from the fields in summer to fight in war.
Yes. I should have brought up conscription, but I again, this is one of those things that if we forget to bring it up in the comments. It's a foregone conclusion that this happens almost every freaking year. So I didn't even think to bring it up.
Yeah, no. The other thing is there isn't really even conscription with this. This is like volunteer fire department.
Yeah.
Like if you're part of the volunteer fire department in whatever community you're in, you don't have a choice. You just are just expected to do it. Even me, I live really close to where our community fire department is. If a fire breaks out around here, I'm expected just to go and just start prepping everything beforehand. And like that's just expected of me.
Yep.
Regardless, like if I don't do it, I am going to be shunned by my local community.
And to most of the Americans who will end up watching this in the future, they're shaking their heads going, it doesn't make any sense. Like, but why? Well, here's why. The reason this makes perfect sense in a collectivist society and why you are very ignorant to not have a more collectivist mindset is because you're supposed to help your community. You rely on those people. They rely on you, even if you don't realize it. You don't even realize how interconnected you are with your neighbors, with your person down the block, etc. You may not realize that they do a job that actually makes your job possible. Mm-hmm. So on, so forth. All of this comes into
this. Is the problem. This is a problem with a hyper-individualist society like in the U.S. where no one really thinks about the fact that it takes collective labor to make a society function. Mm-hmm. We all just think about what we do and very little about how it affects other people.
And on the flip side, hyper-collectivism is also horrible. Yeah.
I'll just explain and let me.
There's a middle ground.
Yeah.
Let me explain why it's hyper horrible. Is because the people that are part of the volunteer fire department, they don't want to do it. But they're afraid of how the inter-community is going to police their action of inaction for not doing it. Yeah, and that's the reason why they do it. It's not because they want to do it. Mm-hmm. It's because they're afraid of exactly the mindset of the people in the community if they don't do it.
Yes, and this comes from, and this is an evolutionary thing, so I can't entirely blame humanity for this one. That comes from the fact that the way that this practice started, of accountability within a community, there was only 2 answers for crimes: death and banishment, which is pretty much the same goddamn thing.
Yeah.
So this comes from a collective understanding of humans, not collective societies, of humans, that if you screw around too much, eventually you will be shunned and isolated and ostracized. And most humans, because we are a communal species, cannot tolerate hyper-isolation. It will literally drive you insane.
Unless you're autistic.
Even then,
honestly, even if you are autistic, like,
no, I'm kidding.
There's a limit to even what hermits can tolerate in terms of isolation.
Like I am a highly, I know, but I am a high, like, autism aside, I am a highly self-sustaining person. Like, I very much value my friends. I'd be very upset if I lost them. But if I lost all of my friends tomorrow, I'd be okay. I'd be able to survive. I'd be able to have interesting, experiences, etc. It would not drive me insane. But that comes from me being a extremely odd human being. This is not normal to be like this. Most humans, to go through what I just described, is one of their worst nightmares. And if you are hearing this and you're saying, no, that's not me, really think about it. You wake up tomorrow and your best friend won't talk to you. Your mom will turn their back on you. Literally turn their back when you try to speak to her. Your friends that you grew up with your entire childhood suddenly refusing to even say your name. This is a powerful motivator, and when abused, extremely effective.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say is that, and I want to say that Japan takes this a little bit further. I don't want to say to like the nth degree, but takes it a lot further
They're
than a lot of
close.
other East Asian cultures. A lot of East Asian cultures, and a lot of that has to do with the cultural understanding that inside Japan, for thousands and thousands of years, Japan has been a hotbed of natural disasters.
Yes.
So you have tsunamis, you have earthquakes, you have volcanoes, you have mudslides, you have typhoons, you have a whole bunch of different things that happen
Pacific
here.
cyclones.
Right, but what
Yes,
the main thing to remember is that how people work together in hardship is basically how Japan's culture basically formed. So if you're not willing to help, even at the basic level, it's viewed as in the culture as if you're not willing to help in a dire need situation, and therefore you are ostracized for not helping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's Despy lives in Japan, so he is giving you a first-hand account. I've lived in Cambodia and I've traveled through most of Southeast Asia, including China. There are places where this is done right. This can be done in a way that does not become hyper abusive and manipulated to the point of unjust hierarchy. It takes conscious mindfulness, which is why I bring up that distinction earlier. It is not about obedience. It is about mindfulness of your superior, mindfulness of your community around you, mindful in this most recent one, mindfulness of those subordinates underneath you that you are in charge of. This can be prevented with that level of mindfulness. And I think the cultures that have failed at that have removed that mindfulness and placed that attention elsewhere. In Japan, that culture or that attention was placed on ritualistic formality, in my opinion. In China, it was put on hyper expansion. And to give you two examples of the ways that this could be abused with that kind of authoritarian hyper collectivism, one push towards expansionism, one push towards inclusionism, or inclusionism, and or isolationism would be the correct term. My brain this morning, and you could see the two distinctions. Both end up harming their communities when it's taken too far in very different ways. And then you could correct me if I'm wrong on the ritual. It's just that's how it looks from the outside. Ritualistic formality.
The only thing is that I will say with Japan when it comes to rituals, if you actually like go back thousands of years before the Jomon period and whatnot, and you're actually looking at the natural disasters, doing the same thing over and over again during a natural disaster that has worked previously in the past becomes a ritual at some point.
I'm with you on that. I'm just saying I think modern Japan has hyper fixated on the ritualistic cultural aspects in that hyper collectivism, which has led to that hierarchy of age issue that we've talked about in the past. And I think that China went the other way, where they went hyper expansionism, where it ended up being much younger people, much more rash people that led their hyper collectivist mindset.
all I'm going to say is like this type of thinking and these types of actions have been prevalent in Japan for the last like 1500 to 2000
No,
years.
I'm not
So
disagreeing with that.
I wouldn't say that like the mindset of collectivism hasn't changed much in 500 years.
That's not. I'm talking about not the change of collectivists, because that was I wasn't trying to say it changed. I'm saying the parts, the individual sections where your culture went, at least from the outside, your culture went wrong was the fixation on the ritualistic, and China's was fixation on the new. You guys were
Okay.
opposite ends of the same coin with the hyper collectivism, is what I was getting at. I wasn't trying to say that your collectivism had changed. I was trying to say that indicate the distinctions between the collectivisms is what I was trying to get
All right,
at.
let's do let's do 1-6. I think you're up, Jack.
Yeah, I am. And I will just point out that going back to proper season in this one as well, proper season is also seasons of mind. We will get into that later, but I wanted to bring it up now since we're on this point before we move on. Okay, the master said, a young man should be filial within his home and respectful of elders when outside, should be careful and trustworthy, broadly caring of people at large, and should cleave to those who are ren. If he has energy left over, he may study the refinements of culture. When? There's a reason I spoke in the cadence I did for that one. This particular phrase has not changed much. And if you were to go look in your little red book, there's only 3 words that are changed from that version to this version. Elders is changed to superiors. Yeah. Outside is in public.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's the same exact phrase. Now, reason I bring this up, this was what most people understood Chinese collectivism to be, because this was the public face. And China, much like Japan, very different reasoning and different mentality behind it, but have different faces they show between the public, private, etc. It's not quite as distinct as the Japanese, but the Chinese still have that. And in this, this is what most people understood. This is be a paragon and an exemplar of our community, is what this is saying.
Yep.
Do not shame your elders. Do not show, for to put it in modern terms, don't show your ass. And going back to the collectivist thing again here, now it talks about people, not persons. Again, now it's back to people, and there is a distinct reason behind this, because the collective, people at large, how do you care for everyone? You can't. I can't care about every single person in my community, but I can care about my community. All the people are in there.
This here, 1.6 is the Will Wheaton rule.
Yes.
Don't be a dick.
No, that is a very accurate way to say it. That is what this is doing. Is don't be a dick. Yeah. And it is also follow the exemplars, because and the reason I'm bringing this up, if he has energy left over, he may study the refinements of when is the end, but just before that should cleave to those who are ren. So your exemplars are the children who follow the respectful, the trustworthy, the loyal people, the people who are useful to their
community. These are the benevolent ones.
I know benevolent is also included in this. You know this. That's right. Why these terms cross over. When you are following the good people in your community, you are the exemplar to those underneath you as well. This is why I say everyone's a teacher and everyone's a student within these communities. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And I'll get to 1.6 here on the side, because there's really not too much we could add to this beyond that. 1.6, refinements of culture, translated to the term when, is a key term in the Analects. It basically is pattern. and is applied in a variety of important ways. Note elsewhere in this translation, when is generally translated in the literal sense, pattern, most often referring to basic cultural norms of civilization that underlie li, in which we see in 112. In many instances, use of the word pattern will signal a range of possible connotations from civilization to good breeding to fine literature. And I'm just going to say, fine literature doesn't seem accurate, but it's a small quibble. Because it seems all literature would be more accurate.
Now, the thing is that character, that literal character, is a derivement from what is it? Literature.
No, that's not what I meant. I was quibbling with fine, not literature. I was saying it should be all,
Okay.
not just fine, is what I was quibbling about. All literature, because literature in this time wasn't distinctified into fine and common as we more do today. It was refined into common and religious. Because if you took the time to write it down, it was important. So I'd say all literature would be the more refined, more accurate way for that portion. Because when they are talking about literature and they translate for when, they are talking about like law codes and not just the ritualistic, what would be considered fine literature in that time period. That's all.
So I'm up for 1-7 then, looks like.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So what is it? Xia said, if a person treats worthy people as worthy and so alters his expression, exerts all his efforts when serving his parents, exhausts himself when serving his Lord, and is trustworthy in keeping his word when in the company of friends, though others may say he is not yet learned, I would call him learned.
And this is where that distinction comes in between studied and learned.
Yep.
Learned versus, yeah.
And this is also beyond that portion. Notice the way that it's phrased. If you cannot be trustworthy with your friends, within literally the people that you are supposed to trust, it is an indication that you are not with anything else, even if you do all of the rest. It is tying all three together so that it is a totality of your actions, not any one action in isolation. And it is done so very intentionally. Because again, communal living, communal concept, everything has to be viewed through the collective.
The way that I view this is that if you're following all of these principles that he's put in there, he's like, it's basically impossible that you did not pick up a skill.
Yeah, that too. Well, I would say you did not pick up character, because in this time period, character is associated with your skill. But yeah, I would say the same thing. Just I'd add in that because they associate you having a skill with you having good character.
Well, no, I mean, like the whole thing here is like if you're, what is it? You treat people as worthy, so you treat the CEO with the same respect that you treat the janitor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is it? And alter your expression to have that. Okay, exerts all his efforts when serving his parents. Your parents are the people that are going to talk to the people that are in charge, that are going to get you a job of some kind. Exhausts himself when serving his Lord, somebody who's going to find somebody in town that's going to get you a job. And is trustworthy in keeping his words when in company of friends, the people that are going to give you the references for the job. Though others may say he's not yet learned, I would call him learned.
You're only hitting my anti-capitalist thing here because of the way you're phrasing this. Because it's not entirely inaccurate, but it's not entirely accurate either, and he's just fucking with me at this point. Because yes, all of that is true, but the reason your parents are the ones to go to this is because of the collective. Because you could not be the one to do it, nor could anyone else. so on, so forth. Like, that is, I know Japan really makes you hate hyper collectivism. I get it. But
Hey,
look at it. It's the way Confucius intended it, not the way fucking dickhead
Hey.
in fucking 8th century intended it.
there are aspects of collectivism here that I enjoy, and there are other aspects that make me want to gouge my eyes out with rusty spoons. Okay?
I know, and I'm just reminding you of the former in this particular section, because that job, if, for example, and I'm going to use this in the more emotional sense, if your parents don't get you that job and you were the right person for that job, they may not survive the next winter. Like, this isn't just
Yeah.
about my lineage getting progression, and like, it's not all that. It's also about the survival of the community, making sure that the right person is in the right job. And that is why your parents, who know you better than anyone, are the ones to argue that for you. But other than that, yeah, that's the only reason I'm pushing back.
There's an interesting thing that what Despy brought up, and you kind of sort of there got me thinking, which is this idea that, an example being your parents get you the job. And it made me realize that, and I realize we're, only part of the way through the first book, but I am curious if this ever goes through more explicitly the responsibility of a parent to their children, because
Yes.
it's been focused a lot
Yeah.
on the responsibility of children to their parents and elders.
Yes. Well, the thing is both are implied within, just so that you understand the way that Asian mind, for example, all of this is implied for the kids. That implies that they're serving non-abusive parents and good rulers who have also done these things and learned in the same pattern. The implication is the intergenerational connectiveness and continuity of these practices, leading to, we know that's not how history played out, but that is what the intent was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Confucius would argue that families that would be like, if you were in an abusive family or whatnot, then they would not be practicing the culture of the Zhao.
Mm-hmm.
Quite literally.
Even if they were abusive in the way, say, for example, like my parents were abusive, trying to turn me into something I was not. They wanted me to become some great teacher. I'm a fucking cook. It's where I belong, is in a kitchen. Like, that's where, like, I would best serve a community. Am I an okay teacher? Yes. Am I a good teacher? Probably not. I'm a fairly effective communicator. That's about it. That this is not the same thing. Like, it's also the implication that your parents would not get you a job that you are not suited for, because that would be setting both you and your family up for failure and shame. Like, that implication is in here as well.
Yes. The problem with implication, and I can't say that this is anyone's fault necessarily, but if you don't know anything about the culture in which this is being written, you do not have the information needed to make the inferences which the implications would suggest.
And now you understand why the massacres in 1920s and 1930s of the elderly within China led to Mao in the 50s.
Yeah.
This is also why when people read me things from the Tao Te Ching, or they read me something from the Analects, and when they read it, they don't understand it, I laugh, and I laugh really hard.
Yeah.
Well, because here's the other thing. Well, this is implied. I'm bringing up the implication here. It does go into these responsibilities as well. It does. I'm not just saying, oh, it's only through implication that he does it. He does it as explicitly as well.
Yeah, and that was my main question. Like, does he ever make it more explicit?
No, he does.
Is expected of
he does. He starts with, to put it in the best way to describe what Confucius is doing, he's laying foundation. Foundation is children, the future. Adults are the past. They are the progression that allows for the future, but they are the past. So he works his way up the order condescendi to the oldest, who are technically the most important, but also the least important. It's odd.
The oldest The oldest are
The
the
oldest would
junzi.
be the least, like, ideally, the oldest would be the least in need of education, of teaching. So you
Right.
start with the youngest because they
Well,
are the
no,
most
it's
in
not
need.
just that.
No,
It's
what I was
the mo.
trying to
Oh, go
say
ahead.
was that what I was trying to say was that in Confucius' mind, the elders are the junzi, and the younger people are the people that need to be trained how to be the junzi.
Yes,
Okay.
and mine is a distinction, not a difference. It is the elders are the most important because they're the ones who are teaching the youngers Lee. So they are the most important in that
Yeah.
regard. The youth is the most important because if they do not accept and embody the Li, the community dies. And that's the juxtaposition of Chinese thought that was lost in the beginning of the 1900s with a great amount of bloodshed. So, you're not wrong. Well, I was just going to bring up Ancom. You're not wrong that without that implication, the knowing these things, it wouldn't be there. That's how the Little Red Book got so corrupted. Is the people who knew all of this were killed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so in the notes here, 1.7 Xie was a junior disciple noted for his abilities with text. Note how this passage seems a gentle correction to the one before. The Analects was composed by many hands over several centuries. Some portions seem to bear the traces of a conversation among differing viewpoints within the Confucian schools.
Confucian school. You mean the Analects aren't univocal? Like
no.
Just about any major text that's more than a few hundred years old?
Well, but there's more to that. I personally disagree that this was a correction. I would say this was an extension, an extrapolation of, because the previous pointed to these things. This refines it into the more contextually relevant portions. So I wouldn't say this is a correction as so much as an extension, personally.
Think of it a lot in the sense of like you had Socrates, and then what is it? Plato and Aristotle wrote about Socrates, and then what is it? Then there was the fire of Alexandria, and then from the fragments from the fire of Alexandria, they're piecing together the words of both Aristotle and Plato on what Socrates was talking about.
Yes, and I would say fairly good analogy. The only distinction I would say is that only half the library
had
burned.
like 12 people. But
I would say only. I was just going to say only half the library burned. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty good analogy.
Well, and to be fair, it may have been one of the biggest libraries, but it certainly wasn't the only library.
We know it's just for the analogy.
Right.
Yeah. There was a lot of knowledge lost within the Library of Alexandria's destruction. That is not to say that all knowledge was lost from this time period. That's not what we're getting at. It's just what I would say, the difference between what I would say between the translator is saying and what I would interpret this, because the translation is pretty damn good. I would say he just misinterpreted it as a correction as opposed to a appendix to. This is an extension of the previous, not a correction of the previous. That's the only difference I would correct him on in this. Just because they're talking about the same thing, just in a more refined way with more culturally significant signifiers. Yep. And
Ancom, I think you're up next.
1-8.
All right. 1.8. 1.8, right?
Yep.
Okay. The master said, if a junzi is not serious, he will not be held in awe. If you study, you will not be crude. Take loyalty and trustworthiness as the pivot and have no friends who are not like yourself in this. If you err, do not be afraid to correct yourself.
And this is where I completely fucking push back on Confucius, not the translator. The whole thing of have no friends who are not like this. This is what led to later corruptions of this text, because it led to the echo chamber effect. as opposed to actual effective communication between the populace. The way I personally would have worded this, have no friends who are unwilling to accept criticism, would be the better way to have worded this.
Yep.
But other than that, I agree with everything said in this statement with that minor caveat.
I expect, like, for me, that last sentence is probably the biggest one, because we very much live in a world, at least in the Western side of things, although I imagine this is
It's
true
just a
even
problem
in
over there too.
Oh yeah, it's a major problem here now.
Yeah, whether you are in a hyper individualist or hyper collectivist society, being able
Social
to
media has
admit
rotted your brain.
yeah, being able to admit when you are wrong and to correct that error is a skill that our current world lacks in severe quantity. And I would even argue the three of us are not immune to this in any way, shape, or
Nope.
form.
And now I would
No,
say
no
I'm
one
probably the
likes-
best at it, just because I'd rather be corrected and told I was wrong and given the correct information. But again, I am a very odd person. I feel bad when I share something that is incorrect. Like, I literally, it physically pains me to tell something that I believe is true to somebody and find out that I told them something incorrect. That actually bothers me. That is not most people.
I mean, I would say it bothers me as well if I
said,
learned that.
Yeah,
but,
obviously, if you learn. I mean, obviously, if I'm ignorant that I was wrong, I can't correct you. But once I find out, I feel horrible.
But it's more the idea. So, I think everyone experiences some level of cognitive dissonance when they encounter information that goes against what they believe they knew previously, and will be resistant to it in some level. Now, the difference is how you handle that cognitive dissonance, whether you are able to put that feeling of discomfort aside and accept the new information that is given to you, or if you push back because you prefer to you prefer the feeling of believing that you are correct rather
Righteous
than
indignation.
actually being correct. Yeah.
You prefer the feeling of righteous indignation as opposed to correction. Yes, that's the way I would phrase that.
And so when we are incorrect and we learn that we are incorrect, how we handle that discomfort is the big thing. And unfortunately, in our world, pretty much regardless of where you are, the feeling of being found incorrect is
I'll be right back.
extremely distressing, because oftentimes it comes with severe social repercussion.
Yes.
And that severe social repercussion is not always warranted. But it leads to a feeling of shame, which tends to promote hiding your error rather than to accountability, which would lead to exposing and correcting your error.
Yes. And there is a third option that Ancom did not list. You can be like me and still highly internalize and fucking despise that feeling and feel like shit when you're wrong and still want the correction. We are rare and it is not fun. But that's the reality. Is I that's why I'd rather not say something incorrect, is because if I'm wrong on something inconsequential, it's inconsequential. But what if I'm wrong on something important? Even if it's minuscule, I could end up having a freaking domino effect in somebody's life that leads to a much worse outcome for them, and I don't want that. My purpose, my reason for being on this planet is to hopefully leave it a better place than where I left it, when I got here. Like that's everybody, and I don't want to hurt anybody along the way. Like even accidentally. Like that's where this comes from. So like this is where that hyper individualist mindset corrupts this concept. You would rather stand on business, quote unquote, and stand 10 toes down on being wrong, then admit you were wrong and take a little shame. There's nothing wrong with some shame, as long as it's justified. Like, obviously, don't be ashamed of things that there's no reason to. But like, when you're wrong, damn, fuck, I fucked up. Sorry about that, and move on. It, like, shame does not have to be all encompassing. It is a useful emotion to feel and recognize and understand. It is not something to run and hide from. It is something to dissect, and that is what the Analects are, in a way, trying to get you to do by putting you in these conversations.
But it is also worth noting there is such a thing as too much shame.
Agreed.
And
that's why I said dissect it, not get encompassed by it. But
I get it. I'm just saying, like, yes, a small amount of shame is useful in that it helps prevent you from making the same or similar mistake later. Yes. Having that feeling of, shit, I screwed this up. Like, there's the saying, you learn more from failure than you do from success. That learning is what shame, a little bit of shame can accomplish. Too much shame and you stop trying.
Yes. And that is the point in this, that, at least in my opinion, that Confucius is trying to get across, is that, or that he should have gotten across in the way that I corrected the wording. Because it's not about having everyone who is of a like mindset. That is a bad thing. If you only surround yourself with people exactly like you will put yourself into a self-reinforcement cycle that could be a positive or negative feedback loop, and you don't know which way it will go. That's why I say, do not have friends who are unwilling to accept criticism. I have friends here who will call me a fucking dumbass anytime I fuck up too bad. Like, but we share.
I'll call you a dumbass anytime you want me to.
Yeah,
so.
But my point is, and we share a lot of similar opinions, but we share a lot of differing opinions. If I only surrounded myself with people who thought like me, it'd be a very lonely place. And that's where I think his wording needed some work.
Yep. Yeah. Let's read the note.
Yeah, I need to go back down. I was just about to scroll back up, and I was like,
let's see, 1.8. This passage seems to string a set of aphorisms together. Are they truly related? Should we read this as a single lesson or a catalog? The latter portions are duplicated at 9.25.
And
my
honestly, answer is yes.
Like, the very first one, to me, at the time, seemed like three relatively disconnected ideas. I was educated differently because there was a lot of context I was missing. Here, as I'm reading through these, they all, like, one goes into the next. If a junzi is not serious, he will not be held in awe. So, be serious in your dealings, and then the next sentence, in a way, tells you how to be serious. If you study, you will not be crude.
I would argue the slight distinction. If you study, you will not be crude is an indication of your master. So as you are a student, if you are acting crudely, it is an expression that your master is an unserious person. So do not shame your master by being unserious yourself. This is how I would interpret that.
But also, as you love to say, multiple meanings here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, loyalty and trustworthiness as the pivot. Although the word pivot there is, I guess,
fulcrum would be more accurate.
Fulcrum, I like that. Yeah, take those as a fulcrum and have no friends who are not like yourself in this. And going back to Jack's issue here, I kind of took this as friend being a slightly more specific thing. Like, you can have associations, colleagues, acquaintances who are not like this. You can spend time around them, but friend would, I think, in this context, be a very specific relation. And he's saying, if you have acquaintances that do not value loyalty and trustworthiness in the way that you do, perhaps do not make them friends until and unless they can change this, they can make that their fulcrum. That's kind of what I was taking from it.
And that is one way to interpret it. I personally do not even value, forgive me for saying this, I don't value that one either. And the reason behind it is this.
Yeah.
If that was the case, you and I would not be as close friends as we are. Same with me and Despy, because there are key points that we would be distinctly different enough where by this order of teaching, we should not be friends. We would be merely acquaintances. And personally, I think having people that are dramatically different than you in much regard as your close friends, sometimes your closest friends, is far more valuable because it allows for the juxtaposition and the contrasting of ideals that a echo chamber would not allow. Whereas if your friends are only within the same mindset, and I'm using that modern term very intentionally here, if have all the same values, all the same mindset, what do you get? You get evangelical fundamentalism.
Yeah, you get sycophancy.
Or a Hassan Pike extreme.
I mean, you're not entitled. No, I mean both are accurate, and that's and that's what I'm getting at is that is something to avoid, not cherish, and that's why I would say I think in the original wording, in the original context of the language, in Chinese this makes perfect sense. In the way that it translates to English, even though it is accurate, it doesn't make perfect sense because of the way we modernly think of the concept of friend. In this time period, friend
I'm
is somebody.
Taking loyalty.
I'm
also taking loyalty and trustworthiness to be very specifically those words.
I know.
Where I feel like you are expanding it beyond.
No, I'm not. Because the friend is the distinction here. In this time period, to use another modern colloquialism, your friend is your ride or die. This is quite literally the person that's going to help you hide the body. That is a friend to this time period. You don't have casual friends. That's not a thing. There's not different levels of friends. There, at least not in that regards. In China, there is friend and there is old friend. There is nothing else. And old friend is a very different title that we will have to get into at a different time. That requires a lot of explanation. but Despy can back me up on this one. There's friend, there's old friend, and then there's everybody else.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There's not much difference between an acquaintance and a colleague.
Yeah. And for example, a friend is as close as family. And I don't mean that in the colloquial sense we use today. I mean, quite literally, your friend might live in your household with you if you become close enough.
Your friend might just show up for dinner, sit down with everybody else,
and never leave. And never leave.
And then leave.
Yeah, like this is a very different concept to the way we think of friends in the more interconnected modern times. In this time period, and specifically in Southeast Asia, friend and old friend have very specific connotations that still hold true to this day. For example, getting old friend status in China as a Westerner is very rare and is a high honor. If I were to, for example, go back to Cambodia, there are certain areas I have old friend status in. You will see me treated damn near deifically. And other places where I was just known as the cook, they'll be like, hi, that's it. If they acknowledge me at all. It is that distinct difference. Old friend is family friend. And when we mean family friend you may never have met this person. He may have old friend status because your great-great-grandfather was fucking ride or die with his great-great-grandfather. These terms are very weird in China.
Right. This is someone that automatically gains trust, even though you've never met them before.
Yeah. For any of you who are looking for a slightly more entertaining explanation for this, I would look up the book Tai Pan by the novelist James Clavell. He talks about the formation of Hong Kong, and he does a very, very good explanation and exemplar within the story of how old friend status works. And I'm going to tell you, it's scarily accurate. Like, if I didn't know for a fact, and I do know this, the author lived through fucking a POW camp and therefore like had like real world experience with the shit, like I would be like, how the hell did he get this so close? Like it's scary how accurate he gets it. But that digression aside, yes, that was the point I was focusing on, not trustworthy and loyalty. It was friend. Because friend is, we have changed the meaning of that word in modern times to more colloquially fit what they would have called an acquaintance. What they call friend, we would call our best friends, our inner circle.
Yeah. All I'm going to say is like, what is it? We're getting close to a time where I need
Yep.
to stop here.
Well, that's why I said maybe book 2, because when I read through book 1 last night, I was like, oh, we're going to digress a lot on some of this.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll get to reading on 1.9. Yeah, I'll get to reading on 1.9.
1.9, yep.
Now I will just point out to this, these digressions are important. We will digress less as we're going forward, except for on book 3, because book 3 is a fucking nightmare. Book 7 we will be able to get through in one episode, but we will still digress more on. But these early chapters we are digressing so heavily on because if you have never lived in Southeast Asia, a lot of this makes no sense to the way that they think of friends, family, and community. So,
yep.
Master Zhang said, devote care to life's end and pursue respect for the distant dead. In this way, the virtue of the people will return to fullness. Okay, so again, small amount of context needed here. Funeral rites in this time period are the most holy rituals in their religion. And when I say the most holy, there is no holy day that is higher than a funeral in China at this time period. We are talking about a culture that literally created professional mourners. I'll let that sink in. There is a job to wail and cry at funerals. That is how important this is to this culture. 2,500 years later, you can hire professional mourners to be at your funeral to profess the appropriate amount of respect for the ritual. Like, that is how important this is to these people in this time period. Anything to add?
Well, I'll just say that when it comes to Japan takes what is it? Of any ritual you could possibly do in Japan, death is taken the absolute most serious, and to an nth degree.
Yep. For different reasons than China. China, it was the warfare. Japan, it's the natural disasters, but same thing.
Yeah. Well, but they both tie back into ancestor worship. So.
No, I agree. I was just bringing up why Japan, they do not do the professional mourners. To them, it is about authenticity, whereas in China, it is the ritual. The ritual is somber in Japan. In China, it is expressive.
Right. The thing is that like funeral rites in Japan, I only know this because my wife's the head doctor at her clinic recently passed away in January.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a process by week and process by month for process by week for 3 months. And a process by month for 12 months over correct funeral, rituals.
Now, I didn't know it was quite that long. I knew it was extended. I didn't know it was quite that extended. I was just going to point out, there's also reasoning behind that, and that comes from Shintoism as to why Japan differs so heavily on this from China. that would be a digression that would take 2 episodes on its own, so we will just skip it for today.
Yeah, right.
But I do want to point it out.
All I'm saying is when certain things happen, like for a wedding, where like wedding what is it, rituals can last like hours on end. Like it can be like a 3-hour ritual at like a shrine, and then there's also like rituals afterwards that solidify certain things that have to do with marriage and whatnot. But there is nothing as extensive and as strict as funeral rites in Japan.
Now, it is very much similar as far as the strictness. The obviously the culture is very different, so the practices aren't the same. But the strictness is very similar in Japan, and as I said, that comes from the centuries and centuries of endless bloodshed that happened in that country.
Yeah.
A lot of dead young men came home in boxes, if at all. From this time period, and that's why it is so important to this culture. And in this time period, it is also key to point out is when they cemented their funeral practicing rites. So the way of cremating the dead if you have lack of land, interring in the sea, or burying upright, etc., etc. These are cultural norms, but they were cemented in this time period around Confucius.
Right. The other thing to keep in mind is, even though I keep bringing up Japan, keep in mind that Japan adopted Confucianism as a form of government like 1,500 years ago.
Yeah. And the reason that this is important is because as much as both cultures utterly fucking hate each other, there is a lot more cultural interconnectedness between China and Japan than either culture is willing to admit.
Yeah.
All
right, next.
And that's me? No, I gotta read this real quick. Many passages in the Analects seem directed at individual action, but suggest social or political consequences. On the term virtue, see 2-1 or 2.1. We won't probably get to 2.1. I will just point out this is a misunderstanding of the translator, in my opinion. I think he's too Western centric and wasn't able to put the communal aspect into it, and that's why it seems to not make sense as it's directed at an individual, but suggests social and political consequences. But yeah.
All right. So 1.10.
Yep.
Zixing and Zigong asked Zigong, when our master travels to a state, he always learns the affairs of its government. Does he seek out the information, or do people give it to him of their own accord? Zigong said, our master obtains this information by being friendly, straightforward, reverential, frugal, and modest. The way our master seeks things is different from the way others do.
Yes. Okay. Now, I am going to use a pop culture reference that I've used for a different book from before as an example. This, if you ever want to read the epitome of this personified, this is the speaker for the dead from the Enderverse. This is the idea of somebody who enters a community and just talks to them and learns their secrets and learns their habits and learns who they are as people. And because he treats them as people, they tell them things they don't even tell their best friends. They don't even it is a practice of mediation that you could see it as examples throughout the ancient world. There is a lot of mediators that function in this way. They basically go immerse themselves in the culture and try to act as one of them and as friendly and polite as possible to learn as much as they can, because then they can extrapolate greater knowledge about the community.
Right. If you want to know a modern pop cultural reference that kind of embodies this, if you look at the Castlevania series and you learn about the Seekers, these are the Seekers.
Yes, precisely. In Grimdark, if you're a Grimdark guy, these are the Naismiths. We could bring up pop culture. This is a very, very common cultural keystone figure. They are just using it in this place for how the master gains knowledge, but this is just a general knowledge gathering tactic. that, as far as I was able to research, and I did research this one myself last night, as far as I was able to research, goes all the way back to Diren Kuyu. We're talking
Yeah.
11,000 years ago.
Right. The
So,
other thing to keep in mind is when they're talking about frugal and modest in this, modest is in character in how you present yourself to people, but frugal in this case here means that you're not adorning yourself with expensive clothing and whatnot. Like you're not peacocking basically.
yes, and for a further addition, you are eating the common fare. You are
Yep.
eating what everyone else eats to, like I said, immerse yourself in the culture and be one of them. But yeah.
Yep.
And modest is also a further thing of not sharing too many personal details. It's a small distinction that outside of Asian cultures gets missed. Personal details are fine. Highly personal details are not. And there's reasoning behind it, too much digression, but that is part of the modesty here, is being justitious in your laying out of trust on your personal details.
Right. One thing that you'll notice, especially like when it comes to like talking with people in Japan, if you're talking about sports, food, or travel, people will talk your ear off, and those are considered neutral topics. If you talk about anything other than that, people will visibly be uncomfortable. You won't see them being visibly uncomfortable because you probably don't understand tatemae, but they are visibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Once you understand what that visibly uncomfortable looks like.
And there's more topics to that list. Like I was able to get away with cooking, fishing, like other things.
Yeah.
Everyday mundane tasks. As long as it's something that anybody can relate to, they'll be fine. The second it gets too personal, the face comes up. And if you've ever been to Asia, you know the face I'm talking about. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Adcom, you look at the screen if you're not, because he just did the face. And you won't even realize that it came up until it happens a few too many times. Yeah. Now that being said, this is less stringent in China, but it is still pretty strict on the way that this is perceived in China. We are being slightly exaggeratory because of the kabuki theater style facial expressions that Despy is giving, but that is only because of Japan. In China, you will have a very, very hard time ever recognizing the face. You just may not ever talk to that person again after that meeting. They just will avoid you.
I have a I'm just saying right now, like the person in Japan will actively avoid you. If they see you before you see them, you will not see them.
Yeah. Well, and for example, for business dealings, to bring it into kind of more modern parlance, they'll be always out to lunch or on a call when you try to set up a meeting. Like that's
they'll have their subordinate go and talk to you,
and that's if they want to insult you. If they still want to semi-respect you, they'll just put you off and just, oh, he's busy, he can't take his call right. Can he call you back later? That will be the response you get, because he still wants to maintain the collectivism. He still wants you part of the collective, but he does not want to fuck with you at all. He's like, you're still part of the collective, but you go over there.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're going to collectivize in different corners.
Yeah. Now, the reason that this is important is Jiqin and Jigong, most of this conversation is talking about two class statuses as well. And that's missed because you have to know the students. But this is interconnectedness because people forget that Confucius was not poor. Confucius was not a commoner. He was by what we would call that standing today. This was an aristocrat who would go live like a commoner amongst them. That's why this carries weight, to these students that seems to carry less weight to us in modern times.
A good character, if you're old enough to remember, Anthony Bourdain would be a good example of that.
Yeah, that'd be a very prime example of a human being that you could go study the life of, who is a very good example of this. Yes.
It was a wealthy individual, but will mingle with the common folk like they're not a wealthy individual,
and preferred their company, and actually preferred their company when he was there. Like, that's the thing. It was genuine. This is not a tactic. Yeah. This is not a, oh, let me put on a performance. That's not how this is. Don't get me wrong. There are performances in this culture, but that's not what this is. This is go genuinely be part of them. Learn who they are. Because if you can think like them, you can understand them. That's what this is. Yeah.
1.10. Not much is known of the minor disciple Zi Qing, and Zi Gong was a senior disciple. He is reported to have performed occasional diplomatic tasks in the state of Lu, despite having no office, because of his skill in speech. He is said to have becoming a rich man in later life. And then see Appendix 4.
He let autocomplete fix it. It should have been become, not becoming. But the reason I bring this up, not much is known except his station. We don't know his family. We don't know that, but we do know that he was of common stock. We learned that in Book 10. And Ji Gong, it wasn't his skills of speech. And this is why I think this guy hasn't lived in China. He just is very good at the language. It was the fact that he was a nobleman's son. I'm sure the speech helped. I'm sure that's why he was sent too. But the nobleman's son was why he was able to go without office.
All right, Ancom, I think you're up next with 111.
Ancom? Ancom, did we lose you?
Did you mute by chance?
Well, he may have had to step away for his spouse, so I'll just read on. I'll just read on to, and he can pick up 112. The master said, "When the father is alive, observe the son's intent. When the father dies, observe the son's conduct. One who does not alter his late father's Dao for 3 years may be called filial." Okay. Now, I'm just going to say, fuck you for this one. You should have fucking burned this one, you fucking old Chinese prick. This one absolutely led to some really bad cultural shit down the line. But he's not wrong in the intent and conduct portion. It's only that last portion that sucks. It's just cut off that last sentence. Just that last sentence just needs to go away, and it would be good. Because that whole thing does not alter his father's. Motherfucker, if he's living exactly like his father did for 3 years, what is he doing? That's performative. That is acting, not actually being. That's not a good thing.
Nah, this is all about Lee.
I know.
Remember,
I know. This
Lee.
is me being irritated with him with the downstream effects. Not saying he was wrong about the Zhao fucking empire. It's just me being annoyed.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying this is all about Lee.
No, I'm with you.
Making sure the 3 years of what is it?
No.
The way.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with
done.
You.
Yeah.
Like I said, I am with you. I just don't like it because it does not alter. Now, if you want to no. What I would say is, if you want this to not have the later downstream effects that you and I know it did lead to, honors his father's Dao for 3 years, because it does not alter. That's rigidity. If the times change, the practice has to change too. that is where they fucked up. They forgot to include the flexibility that was supposed to be taught in that.
All right, go ahead and read the note.
Ancom, you back yet? Nope. Okay. 11. Duplicated in 4-20. See the note here. Why keeping to one's father's way, Tao, is critical to filiality is unclear. Passage 19.18 may provide some insight into what it entailed. Now, the particular way I think he's right that is that passage is correct. What I would say, the reason it is unclear is because he, unlike you and I, never lived there. He never saw it.
Yeah.
Because it makes perfect sense to me why that is, having lived in Asia. I don't like it, but it makes sense. There's a distinction between me not liking this thing and it making sense culturally. Like, it makes perfect sense in that culture. It makes perfect sense in almost every Southeast Asian culture with the exception of Vietnamese, and that's only because theirs is longer. Theirs is 5 years.
All right, so we're going to do 1.12. Master Yo said, in the practice of Li, harmony is the key. In the Tao of the kings of old, this was the beauty. In all affairs, great and small, follow this. Yet there is one respect in which one does not. To act in harmony simply because one understands what is harmonious, but not to regulate one's conduct according to Li. Indeed, one cannot act in that way.
Yes. Okay. For lack of a better way of phrasing this, do what is harmonious unless harmony interferes with tradition.
Yep.
And this is a dumb fucking take that I think misunderstood the purpose of the poem. Because that is a poem that Master Yu said, and I think is misinterpreted by the students and this interpreter. Not necessarily the master, that I can't say, because when you look at that poem in Chinese, that poem indicates not a adherence to tradition, adherence to a way. A way was a modality of thought, not a model of traditions in the kings of old. And I think that was the part that got misinterpreted by the students 500 years later, as Confucius was trying to, Confucius and his students were trying to teach them about it. I think they misunderstood that.
Li refers to the body of religious, political, and common ceremonial forms that marked the Zhou cultural sphere as patterned Wen, or civilized. Confucians believed that Li had evolved through sage trial and error from the earliest leaders of previous dynasty to its apex in the initial centuries of the Zhou era. Li may be singular or plural.
Yes, and personally, I think in this particular instance, because of the way that it is phrased, the phraseology in Chinese, I think he is trying to use it pluralistically to indicate the juxtaposition between the good Zhou and the bad Zhou without indicating more than one word.
Yeah.
Personally, that's how this reads to me. I could be wrong. My Chinese is very rusty. It is very rusty. But that's how this reads to me. And I think that's just missed because he hasn't lived there and seen these dialogues happen in person and see them do exactly that, where it becomes a combat between the mindset of the previous generation and the tradition of the previous generation, which weren't always synonymous with one another.
Ancom, are you back yet? We'll take that as a no. Why don't you go ahead and read 113?
Well, I'm just going to move this back up. Okay, so Master Yo said, trustworthiness is close to righteousness. One's words are tested true. Reverence is close to Li. It keeps shame and disgrace at a distance. One who can accord with these and not depart from his father's way, such a one may truly be revered. I personally think this is not a mistranslation, but a misunderstanding of the translation, because it keeps shame and disgrace at a distance. The way it reads, and I think the way that this interpreter has interpreted it, is that the tradition keeps shame and disgrace at a distance. When I think in this particular instance, it is saying to keep shame and disgrace at a distance from the Li, because you are protecting it. It's just the way it is phrased. With the way Chinese sentences are structured, it seems like they literally translated this as opposed to transliterated it correctly. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get that. The other thing is that, and I've read different texts and whatnot. This is actually one of the few that I actually like to read on the subject, because it feels closer to like the meaning than other ones that I've read before.
Yeah, and there may be harmonizations in those. I'm not just disagreeing there. I'm just pointing out, like, it seems like this guy has misunderstood the mechanism of distancing. It is to keep it at a distance, as opposed to it keeps things at a distance. It's you should keep shame and disgrace from this, as opposed to this keeps shame and disgrace from you. You see what I mean? Again, it's just the way it reads with the way Chinese sentences are structured. I could be wrong. It's just the way it feels. It definitely also tracks more in line with what I know of Confucius teaching on culture to be interpreted that way. Than the way this guy is laying it out. It seems like he just literally translated it, as opposed to literarily translated it.
Right, I get that. Ancom, are you back yet?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Okay,
can you?
I'm going to finish off 113's side note, and then
there isn't nothing. It just says that it's a reiteration of 111.
Okay, good.
So 114.
All right. The master said, a junzi is not concerned that food fill his belly. He does not seek comfort in his residence. If a person is apt in conduct and cautious in speech, stays near those who keep to the Tao and correct himself thereby, he may be said to love learning.
Yes, and this is a cultural thing that Despy knows because of folklore, as do I. This is talking about the happy fat sage who shared very little knowledge. This is the condemnation of the willful ingrate, so to speak, is what this is doing. The other thing for the images that you're thinking of, think of pre-Buddha fat Asian statues of the guys with the giant ball necklaces. The ones that had the giant wood balls around their neck. Those kind of sages that would go town to town drinking and eating on the largesse of the community and sharing very little knowledge. Those are the types that are being described in this.
And the other thing is the whole thing is another thing with this is they're basically saying that someone who is the junzi in this is not concerned about wealth and lavish living. Is what they're basically saying. Yeah, well, is
not interested in decadence is the way I would just phrase it, just because it applies to culture as well as food. Just the way I would say it is all.
Right. It just that my main thing with this is that you're not going to want to. You don't necessarily have to have the most expensive thing that's there, and you don't have to necessarily sleep in the most expensive bed with the most expensive linens and the
Or
most
in the
expensive.
comfort of your own home. You are just as comfortable
Yeah.
sleeping under the stars as you are in your own bed, is also an indication.
Pretty
of
much.
this. Yes.
Yep.
It is to
Yep.
indicate, well, I was just going to point out, because this is something that is expressed in the religion outside of Confucianism. The way in this regard is the way like water, to be like water.
Yep.
So go on.
Yep. Yeah, no, what I was just basically saying is that they're setting a tone for the style of person in the first part, which what is it which adds to the second part, and then say that he may be said to have love of learning.
Yes, because
That's where
the happy fat sages I'm describing are sages of the later Zhao period. He is saying be like the sages of the former Zhao period, which were more like aesthetics.
Yep.
And that's just a cultural thing.
Oh.
If you don't know the folklore of that time period, it's kind of hard to know. We're talking about a time period before Confucius lived, so we're talking much older than 2,500 years ago. So it's one of those things that unless you sat around enough campfires and heard enough weird fucking folklore stories, you just don't know that one.
A lot of times these people were like pretending to be sages as well, and they were like snake oil salesmen that basically came in and ate on everyone else's dime and pretended to give knowledge and then leave.
Okay, and the first 115 is the 114 commentary ANCOM. He just mistyped. It's supposed to be 1.14, not 115 twice.
Oh, yep, I got you. In this conversation, Zigong shows his knowledge of the classical collection of songs known as the poetry Shijing, C2.2. Confucius refers to Zigong, him by the name Si. That was a weird way to write that. In ancient Asia, most men possessed at least two personal names, a childhood name by which their families addressed them, and a style name for public use given to them at a puberty ceremony called capping. Zigong is a style name. As a teacher, Confucius uses the intimate family name. Multiple names for people create a reading problem in the Analects. I will use notes to try and keep clear who is who.
Yes.
1.15 may be modeled on 3.8, which is likely earlier.
Okay, that's
Oh,
weird.
yeah.
He did mark. Okay, he has a mark. Okay, so no, that was about 115, not 114.
Yeah, well,
but he doesn't have one for 114. Okay, he left out his commentary on 114, the idiot.
Oh, yeah, apparently.
He didn't put it in there, so I thought it was the typo. My mistake. Well, now we got a precursor to 115.
All right, well, go ahead, Jack. You're up.
Zhigong said, to be poor but never a flatterer, to be wealthy but never arrogant. What would you say to that? And Master said, that's fine, but not so good as to be poor but joyful, but to be wealthy and lovely. Zhigong said, in the poetry it says, as though cut, as though chiseled, as though carved, as though polished. Is that what you mean? And the master said, ah, see, I can finally begin to talk about the poetry with him. I tell him what came before, and he understands what is coming next. Okay, so this is a model, by the way. This is, before we even go to what he said there, this is drawing back to what I was talking about earlier in the episode, where I can begin a portion of the Analects saying, and Despy fills in the rest of the meaning. Because these phrases are ubiquitous with cultural norms, cultural stereotypes, etc. You know, to use a Western one, these are the Chicken Littles of there. So the sky is falling. I say that to anybody, you understand what I mean. It's bullshit. To them, being able to say part of a poem and it say the rest of the meaning to the individual is what they are setting the model for here. I don't know. I don't remember if the commentator brings this up, but it is highly important to remember this because they talk about this crap all the time from the poetries. And if you don't know the poetries, you'll miss it. And if we forget to bring it up and he forgets to bring it up, you'll miss that some of this stuff is, parable or analogy or metaphor to something in that has nothing to do with what they're talking about. So,
Right.
yes, what he is talking about here in the poetry is the very first polishing of the restones. This is a practice. I'm not going into the history of the restones, but it's an old practice of luxury, essentially, is what this is going into, and it is talking to all of the steps that lead up to the finished product. It's very obvious when you read it step by step, but it is talking about something very quintessential to them. It is talking about you have to be able to see both the common and the luxury as your equal.
And the other thing is that what is it? Confucius is excited with this conversation because now they get to use Li in more a more apt nuanced way, and that is what is exciting him about this, is because like Li is the ultimate form of teaching.
Yes. And for example, if to use a more internet one, surprise motherfucker, if that tone, you just heard it saved by that fucking meme instead of me when I said it. Like it's one of those kind of things. He just got earwormed by something that he was not aware his student was aware of and learned in. And I use the term learned specifically in this one intentionally because just being studied in the poetry means nothing. It just means you're a performer. It means you can recite it. Being learned in the poetry is understanding all of the implications of every line therein. And that is what Confucius was waiting on. This was a light bulb moment, so to speak. And as he points out in the other 1.15 commentary, this may be modeled on 3.8, which is likely earlier. Remember, we are reading book 1. Book 1 is not chronologically first. It is substantially the most important, not chronologically the initiator. And that is why this feels out of place so early in the book for a light bulb moment to be happening. This is foreshadowing, essentially. And he is saying, which is likely earlier. No, it's not likely earlier. We can tell by the freaking sentence construction it's earlier. It is almost a century earlier. They're using different freaking verbiage. Sake. Like the language was not the same.
Well, yeah. Hey, we'll just say that the chronological release of Star Trek series has more continuity than the Analects.
Yeah, that's accurate. And what I would like the reason that this is significant and why to point this out. They were less concerned. When we think of tradition, we think of continuity of culture. That is the modern concept of tradition. And their concept of culture and tradition, it is continuity of thought. Very different. Cultures can change around the thought all the time. It is the continuity of thought that was important, which is why the chronology is less important. The substance is what's important. Yeah. And we're on the last 16.
I'll knock out the last one.
Yeah.
And we'll end it after this one here. So the master said, do not be concerned that no one recognizes your merits. Be concerned that you may not recognize theirs.
Yes. It says others, not theirs, but it's the same thing.
Or others, sorry.
Well, the reason I say it doesn't matter because the word there is synonymous with them as well, because it's others in context of this specific context, etc. There is another time where they will use others in almost an identical context to this, and they are talking about the spirits of ancestors, This is a distinction we need to draw here, because later you will think that it is trying to speak like this. It is not. It is talking about people who have been dead for many, many, many years. And you need that context going ahead.
Right.
Because the thing is this is talking about, don't, to use a modern colloquialism, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't allow yourself to miss the people around you. Don't miss the forest for the trees. We can go through a few of them. This is...
It actually reminded me of a, sorry to interrupt, it reminded me of a very specific modern saying, which is, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less, which kind of...
This is more...
I had
kind
a
of
different
feels
approach.
very similar to that.
No, you're not wrong. I would say the only caveat I would make is, do not put yourself above others or them above you. It is that collective equality thing that it's aiming for, personally, is how I read it. But
right. My thing is the way that I read into this more than anything is first of all, know your self-worth, and realize that what is it, the worthiness of others.
Well, and the key point here, and this is the point that we've glossed over, all three of us did actually, do not be concerned. No one recognizes your merits. This is the concept of hopelessness, the concept of Sisyphean task of, I'm not being recognized for what I'm doing. Why should I keep doing? Don't be concerned with that. Be concerned if you're doing the job. Be concerned if the job is getting done and the community is like prospering because of it. If somebody doesn't recognize it, that is them making a mistake, not you.
Yeah. The other thing is that the way this is worded, that if you are living in the ideal society, people will recognize your merits.
Yes, the implication is there.
This isn't it's implied that if you're living in an ideal society and you're recognizing other people's merits, they should be recognizing yours as well.
Yes. And furthermore, that you personally are responsible for you and you alone. You cannot be responsible for their thoughts. You cannot be responsible for what they recognize. You can only be responsible for what you recognize. And if you allow yourself to become so jaded or cynical, or pick your I don't like this mentality, that you allow it to gloss over the largesses and the contributions of others, you will eventually become a stone to this boat. You will drag it down. You will no longer be useful, because resentment breeds further resentment. It's just that simple.
Yep.
And you can't resent somebody for not recognizing something that they may not have seen. Like, that's the other thing. You don't know their thoughts. They may not have realized that you were even the one doing said job, so on and so forth, like, etc. So, like,
all right. And with that, we're going to close out the Analects for today, and we will come back for book 2, and we'll probably take one episode to do book 2, because book 3 should be its own episode.
Well, what I was going to say is we will probably come back and do book 2 on its own. We will probably start getting into book 3, because book 2 goes much quicker. The reason that I didn't think we would actually get into book 2, that's why I only put maybe in the title today, is because I knew we would digress on a bunch of these, because there is a lot outside of China, outside of Asia really, that is very hard to make conceptual sense of, because very few cultures on the planet function in this way today, even the ones that profess to be living by Confucianist teachings. And therefore, we need to establish, this is 2,500 years ago. Name any culture that survives today from that long ago that's the same. It's not. It's like, that's why this really needs to be taken into account when you're looking at this. You have to put yourself in the shoes of a Chinese person 2,500 years ago, when for the previous 190 years that your quote unquote nation states have existed, they've been at war with each other, and you've had a couple
Yeah.
of decades here and there of peace, and you're looking at potentially another very great
truce.
close enough. And you're looking at a potential fracturing of that truce and that peace in a potential centuries more of war coming for you. That is what he is teaching to try and prevent, is this cycle in what is going on. And this is very prevalent even today. We forget the lessons of the past. He is doing this same thing 2,500 years ago about the lessons of their past. This is why this is an important thing, and why we need to always conceptualize and do our best. We're never going to be perfect. Even the experts are never going to be perfect. Do our best to put ourselves in their shoes and look at things through their eyes and not judge them by modern concept.
Alrighty, and with that, I am Desperado Sensei.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Income.
And we'll catch you next time.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
小体力气精细，中枢阔气量，细所不语真实，无视于他人。水而思之兮，不亦明乎？思而学之兮，免有大义。有朋之远兮，冷漠大言，人不知而无怨兮，君子之福。且知兮为何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之迷兮，不诚恳之人。小人反是兮，君子所为。人为心之根兮，欲乃心之刚。兄子修其身兮，安百姓养。小体力气精细，中枢阔气量。细所不语真实，无视于他人。水 诚有其所，雄心共志兮，民心自富，立言写之兮，何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之迷兮，不常看之人。小人反是兮，君子所为。人为心之根兮，乃心之刚。兄子修其身兮，安百姓养。小体力其精兮，中枢括其量。其所不欲者兮，勿施于他人。学而思之兮，不亦明乎？思而学之兮，免于殆矣。有朋之远兮，冷漠大洋。人不知而无用兮，君子之福。知之为知兮，为之为不知。失之也也兮，圣人之教。为政于列兮，别诚有其所。雄心共志兮，民心自富。立言写之兮，何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之迷兮，不常看之人。小人反是兮，君子所为。人为心之根兮，乃心之刚。兄子修其身兮，安百姓养。小体力其精兮，中枢括其量。其所不欲者兮，勿施于他人。 水而思之兮不亦明乎？昔而学之兮免有殆矣。有朋之远兮来莫大焉，人不知而无远兮，君子之福。知之为知兮，为之为不知。识之也也兮，圣人之教。为政于烈兮，别政有其所。雄心公之兮，民心自负。礼乐节之兮，为何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之明兮，不常看之曰。小人反是兮，君子所为。人为心之根兮，乃心之刚。兄子修其身兮，安百姓养。小体力其精兮，中枢扩其量。己所不欲则兮，勿施于他人。水而思之兮不亦明乎？昔而学之兮免有殆矣。有朋之远兮来莫大焉，人不知而无远兮，君子之福。知之为知兮，为之为不知。识之也也兮，圣人之教。为政于烈兮，别政有其所。雄心公之兮，民心自负。礼乐节之兮，为何之？中庸之道兮，天下之至德。今人之明兮，不常看之曰。小人反是兮，君子所为。 啊，咿呀呀呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀呀呀，嘿呀呀呀。人为心之根，习于乃心之刚。兄子修其身，是于安百姓养。小